Chapter 234. How is that possible? Su Qingseng tried to hide her fear for Hu Jinniao. I just got bored in there, so I wanted to come out for some fresh air. Come out for some fresh air? Why didn't you answer my call? Hu Jinniao almost called the police. Do you know how worried I was about you? Sorry, I accidentally muted my phone. It wasn't on purpose. It was really an accident. Looking at the calm look on her face, Hu Jinniao couldn't help but pinch her cheek. Don't do that again. Okay, I'm fine now, aren't I? She rushed to Tianyu as soon as she received Hu Jinniao's call. Hu Jinniao looked at her and restrained himself from pinching her face. He took her hand and led her into the building. I still have some work to do. Wait for me, and I'll go to dinner with you, okay? Okay. Next time you go out, you must tell me. You're not familiar with this place. I'll be worried about you, you know? Okay. Su Qingseng didn't argue with Hu Jinniao about these things. In fact, she just wanted to relax. Who knew that those things would happen? Wife. After entering the elevator, Hu Jinniao suddenly put his arms around her waist. Are you angry? Angry? Why would I be angry? Because of going back to Lin City. Hu Jinniao looked into her eyes. In fact, he wanted to know if she really didn't want to stay. I'm not angry. Su Qingseng really wasn't angry. She was just a little bored. You said you're not angry. Hu Jinniao pinched her cheek. Look at your face. Your whole face is showing me that I'm unhappy. I'm very unhappy, and you've made me angry. No way. Su Qingseng was amused by him. What nonsense are you talking about? No way. Look at your face. Hu Jinniao turned her face to look at the mirror wall. There was an amber mirror on the bright elevator wall. Su Qingseng looked at it and saw Hu Jinniao's face in the mirror. She turned around and looked at him. Hu Jinniao, you. When the elevator arrived, Hu Jinniao's secretary was standing at the door with a document in her hand. He signaled for her to go back to his office first. He signed the documents and made some arrangements before entering his office. Su Qingseng was reading the news on her tablet. Hu Jinniao didn't want to disturb her. After dealing with business, he had time to be alone. Time passed slowly. Hu Jinniao moved quickly. Shortly after nightfall, he disposed of the remaining papers. After that, he found that Su Qingseng's body was curled up on the sofa, as if she was about to fall asleep. Hu Jinniao sat down on the sofa. As soon as his hand touched Su Qingseng's face, she woke up. Su Qingseng yawned, rubbed her cheek against his palm, and asked, Are you done? Done. Hu Jinniao supported her and gestured for her to sit up. Are you very sleepy? Nope. I'm not sleepy. He was just a little bored waiting. Can we go now? Yes. Hu Jinniao nodded and stood up to help Su Qingseng. However, she had been in the same position for too long. As soon as she stood up, her feet went numb, and she sat back down. Her expression was a little strange. Hu Jinniao immediately guessed it. He put her coat on the sofa in her arms and picked her up. Chapter 235. Put me down. Su Qingseng was embarrassed. This was his company. What did he want to do? Can you walk? Are your feet numb? Yes. But. No buts. Hu Jinniao picked her up and walked to the door. When he passed by the door, he gestured for Su Qingseng to take his suit jacket. Su Qingseng couldn't push him away now. She was originally holding her own clothes, but now she was holding Hu Jinniao's clothes. The two of them left the office. Most people on this floor had already gotten off work. Hu Jinniao carried her to the elevator. Su Qingseng was a little embarrassed, but seeing that no one was around, she relaxed a lot. However, when she looked at the scene of herself in Hu Jinniao's arms in the mirror wall, her face was still a little red. Put me down. There were cameras in the elevator. Wasn't he afraid that his image in the company would be ruined? No. You're my wife. What's wrong with me holding you? How could Hu Jinniao not know there were cameras? So what? He and Su Qingseng were a serious husband and wife. Besides, he could get someone to take out the video tomorrow. Thinking of this, he became a little bolder. He looked at Su Qingseng's red lips and kissed her. Not only do I want to hold you, but I also want to kiss you. Hu Jinniao. Wasn't he enough? Or did he think he was? Hu Jinniao liked to see her like this. She pouted her lips slightly, and her face was a little angry and a little coquettish. What's wrong with me? Ha! Tell me. As he spoke, he kissed her again. Su Qingsang's face became redder, and she felt more uncomfortable. Hua Jinyao, put me down. She called him by his full name again. Hua Jinyao had long noticed that when Su Qingsang called him, it was always Hua Jinyao. She didn't seem to have called him wife even once. Or Jinyao. Not in bed. He often used tricks on her. Hua Jinyao suddenly put his face next to Su Qingsang's cheek. He pressed his forehead against hers and looked into her eyes. The two of them breathed in the same breath, and the atmosphere was very intimate. How about you call me husband and I'll put you down? Su Qingsang looked at his enlarged face and the faint smile in his eyes. He looked down. Stop messing around. If you don't scream, I'll carry you all the way today. Anyway, she was light. He worked out all year round and had a good body. Carrying her was a piece of cake. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang bit her lip and looked at the elevator going lower and lower. Put me down, she said anxiously. You're calling me dear husband, aren't you? I'll put you down right away. What do you think? Su Qingsang's face was burning. She was too embarrassed to call him that. Don't mess around. Hua Jinyao clicked his tongue and said, It seems that you enjoy my embrace more. Since that's the case, just keep hugging it. Su Qingsang was very embarrassed. It was okay to be in the elevator. The elevator was about to reach the underground parking lot. If someone saw it, the elevator arrived and the door was about to open. Hua Jinyao moved closer. Hurry up and call. Su Qingsang bit her lip and was about to say something when the door opened, and someone happened to be standing outside. Su Qingsang was shocked. The voice that was about to come out stopped there. The person standing at the door was none other than Hu Yifan. He held the car key in his hand and seemed to be planning to go upstairs. Chapter 236. Hua Jinyao, who always suppressed him in the company's board of directors and was never polite to him in private meetings, was hugging his new wife intimately. The two of them seemed to be planning to do something amazing. Realizing this, Hua Yifan raised the corners of his mouth with a playful expression on his face. Big brother, you're in a good mood. Did you just work overtime? He emphasized the word overtime. The meaning was obvious. Hua Jinyao was quite calm. Even if Hua Yifan saw it, he didn't intend to let go of Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang was very embarrassed. She gestured for him to let go of her several times, but he didn't move. She couldn't help but pat his back again. Hua Jinyao just looked at Hua Yifan, as if he didn't see it. Yes, I just finished working overtime. I haven't been here for a few days, and there's been a lot of work in the company. Really? I thought that big brother had always handled the company with ease. Who knew that there would be times when you have to work overtime? Hua Yifan nodded, looking as if he understood and didn't need to explain. Of course it's easy for me to handle it. But aren't you already off work? What are you doing? I forgot something upstairs. I'm going to get it now. Hua Yifan spread his hands. I'm just an idler. I can't compare to you working overtime at this hour. It's also hard. When he said it was hard, he didn't forget to look at Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao's arms meaningfully. Wasn't it hard? He didn't come to work for a while. And when he did, he brought his wife to the company. Only Hua Jinyao would be able to do something like this without separating public and private interests. Wouldn't he? Su Qingsang chose to pretend to be dead in the face of the two of them arguing. At the same time, she didn't forget to signal Hua Jinyao to let her down. Hua Jinyao only looked at Hua Yifan, as if he didn't see her movements. It's my duty. After all, my brother is too useless, so I have to work harder. Don't you think so? Hua Yifan's expression suddenly became ugly. In that case, I can only trouble you to work harder, brother. Of course. After saying that, Hua Jinyao carried Su Qingsang out. Su Qingsang tried several times, but Hua Jinyao didn't let go of her. She was so embarrassed that she buried her face in Hua Jinyao's chest. When Hua Jinyao put her in his car, she covered her face and found that it was burning. It's all your fault. She was almost too ashamed to see anyone now. What happened to me? Hua Jinyao went around to the other side to open the car door. He didn't think he had done anything wrong. Don't worry. He won't dare to say anything. Hua Jinyao. Was this something he was spouting nonsense? After all, she was Hua Yifan's sister-in-law. Now that he saw her like this, it was really, it's okay. Hua Jinyao suddenly felt that Su Qingsang's blushing face was really cute, and at the same time, he found it a little funny. Honey, you're a married couple that I've held a marriage certificate with. So what if I hug you? Su Qingsang didn't want to talk to him anymore. Seeing her like this, Hua Jinyao couldn't help but lean over and kiss her on the cheek. Alright, let's go eat. Su Qingsang touched her forehead helplessly. Looking out of the window, she suddenly felt that Hua Jinyao becoming the president of Tianyu Group might really be a mistake by the old master. Otherwise, how could this happen? What are you thinking about? Hua Jinyao started the car. Because it was still the evening rush hour, the car was very slow, so he had time to chat with Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang shook her head, got rid of those speculations and changed the subject. Chapter 237. She didn't just dislike him. Just now, she clearly hated him to the point of wanting to go against Hua Jinyao. She recalled that it was the same in the Hua family. She even had a vague feeling that in the entire Hua family, except for old Master Hua, no one else liked Hua Jinyao. Why was that? He was the eldest son, wasn't he? Wasn't that too strange? Su Qingsang sensed that something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Hua Jinyao didn't say anything and just focused on driving. Su Qingsang looked at him and wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't want to ask anymore. It didn't feel good to be disliked by others, especially by one's own family. What do you want to eat tonight? There was a red light ahead. Hua Jinyao glanced at her. She thought for a moment and said, Let's go home. You've been away for so long. Let's go home and have dinner with Grandpa. Don't always eat out. Hearing this, Hua Jinyao turned around and held her hand. Are you being filial for me? You don't like it? I like it. I like it very much. Hua Jinyao chuckled. In fact, Su Qingsang was a simple person. If others were good to her, she would be good to them. She didn't like the Hua family, but old Master Hua was good to her, so she thought about him. Okay, let's go home. In fact, if it weren't for Lu Tongjia, he would have wanted to go home. He was just afraid that she wouldn't want to see them and feel uncomfortable. Hua Mingliang and Hua Mingmei usually didn't eat at the Hua family mansion. When they got home, only old Master Hua, Hua Mingguang, Lu Tongjia, Su Qingsang, and Hua Jinyao had dinner together. Old Master Hua was very happy to see his grandson back for dinner. He thought that his grandson wouldn't come back. Su Qingsang was happy to see her grandfather so happy, so she sat next to him. Hua Mingguang was a little surprised to see this scene in front of him. This daughter-in-law had some sense. She knew who in this family needed to be pleased the most. Su Qingsang was already hungry. After all, she had helped catch the thief in the afternoon. With Hua Jinyao around, they were able to enjoy the meal quite comfortably, except for Lu Tongjia's occasional glances. However, Su Qingsang had already calmed down a lot. After all, for people who didn't like you, no matter how much you did, they didn't like you. After dinner, the group went to the living room. Old Master Hua asked someone to bring out a chessboard and played chess with Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang sat next to Hua Jinyao and watched them play chess. She didn't know much about chess, but she barely knew the rules. She knew that Hua Jinyao was good at chess. She knew that he could beat old Master Li in chess. What she didn't expect was that Hua Jinyao could even defeat old Master Hua. Lu Tongjia felt suffocated as she watched the loving and harmonious scene between the grandfather and grandson. She stood up and was about to leave, but Hua Mingguang held her arm and asked her to sit down. Lu Tongjia glared at her husband. It was his business if he wanted to stay and watch. She didn't want to. She wanted to stand up again, but Hua Mingguang pressed her down again. At the same time, he picked up the remote control and turned on the TV. Su Qingsang was watching chess attentively. She suddenly heard the sound of the TV and glanced at the screen. After seeing it, she exclaimed in surprise. Chapter 238. Today a Good Samaritan incident happened in our city. Because I was there, I have the first piece of information. Su Qingsang looked at the introduction below and realized that the woman was actually a host of the local TV station in Rong City. She didn't add fuel to the fire. Instead, she vividly described how Su Qingsang had saved the man's life. After saying that, her expression changed. Unfortunately, this warm-hearted young lady refused to accept my gratitude. She left after doing a good deed. I really want to see this beautiful and brave lady now. I really want to thank her. Su Qingsang almost wanted to laugh. No wonder this woman was so talkative at the police station. So she was a host. But the mood changed again. The host smiled brightly and gently moved a finger. I know the name of my benefactor. Su Qingsang was shocked. Sure enough. Please see my beautiful and brave Miss Su Qingsang from the distant Lin City. Or if there is a kind-hearted person who knows Miss Su Qingsang's whereabouts, please give me Miss Su's contact information or address. I want to visit her to thank her. Su Qingsang wasn't the only one staring at the screen. Everyone else was staring at the screen. After reading this part of the news, everyone turned to look at Su Qingsang. From Lin City, named Su Qingsang? Hua Jinyao narrowed his eyes and stopped playing chess. Honey, the person she was talking about isn't you, is it? Su Qingsang smiled a little awkwardly. Would you believe me if I said no? Honey. Hua Jinyao held her hand tightly. I didn't know you were so good at martial arts. Don't listen to that person. I don't have any martial arts skills. Su Qingsang held her forehead. I was just lucky today. You call that luck when you defeated the enemy in one move. Hua Jinyao didn't believe it at all. I said that woman was talking nonsense. How could she be so good? Su Qingsang looked at these people and explained what happened during the day in a low voice. What she said was completely different from what the host said. However, it didn't stop the Hua family from listening carefully, especially old Master Hua. He had wanted to be a soldier before, but because he had to take care of his family's business, he wanted to support them in another way. Therefore, the person who joined the army that year was his brother, Hua Yangyuan. Later, because Hua Yangyuan was injured on the battlefield, he was transferred to a civilian position. Hearing Su Qingsang's courage and boldness, he was very happy. Good. Okay. He's a good boy. Grandpa. Su Qingsang blushed. It's really not a big deal. It's just a very small matter. It's already amazing enough that I helped when I saw injustice. Furthermore, he was able to remain calm and composed. Alright. It's really rare. Old Master Hua looked at Hua Jinyao as he spoke. Jinyao, you've married a good wife. Of course. Hua Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulders. When Old Master Hua praised her, he also praised himself. I've always had good taste. Yes. Good. Old Master Hua was happy. Qingsang, don't be in a hurry to leave. Stay for a few more days. I'm glad you're here. I will. Chapter 239. Lu Tongjia's face darkened again. Hua Mingguang didn't say a word. When Old Master Hua felt tired and went upstairs, the two of them also went upstairs and left. Su Qingsang breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't feel so comfortable when the elders were there, especially when Lu Tongjia was there. Before she could completely relax, Hua Jinyao's body had completely leaned over. Honey, what are you doing? Although it was late, there were still servants in the Hua family who were still awake. Nothing. I just wanted to wake you up. Hua Jinyao wrapped his arms around her waist and rested his chin on her shoulder. I suddenly realized that my wife is very good. Stop it. Really? Very good. Hua Jinyao added, then leaned over and kissed her on the neck. Honey, why do you think you're so likable? Stop messing around. If someone saw this, she would really die of embarrassment. I'm not messing around. I'm praising you, honey. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he simply picked up her body and put her on his lap. Honey, I discovered something. What? Just now, I met someone else and let you escape. You haven't called me husband yet. Su Qingsang blushed again, feeling very uncomfortable. She quickly moved away from Hua Jinyao's arms. It's getting late. I'm going to take a shower. Su Qingsang ran as fast as a little rabbit. Don't run. Hua Jinyao got up and chased her. Are you going to call me husband or not? Su Qingsang pretended not to hear him and ran faster and faster. Hua Jinyao quickly caught up with her. When Su Qingsang ran back to the room, there was nowhere to run. Hua Jinyao closed the door with an evil smile. Honey, you ran up here yourself. Don't blame me. All the exclamations were muffled by the heavy wooden door, and no one outside could hear anything. Another place in Rome City. It was a small courtyard with 2 entrances. It was very quiet inside, far away from the road. The TV was on, and an auntie brought the dishes to the table. Then she called into the inner room. Sister Xiang, dinner is ready. Let's eat. The auntie was from Sichuan, and her Sichuan dialect hadn't changed. There was no response, only the sound of a chair being pulled. After a while, the person inside came out. She was a middle-aged woman in her 50s. Her gray hair was tied up at the back of her head. The wrinkles on his face were obvious, and there were even a few spots on his face. He sat down in front of the table. The auntie turned on the TV and sat down on the other side. The news was also playing on the TV. It was the same broadcast in the same city. Both of them watched this program. Sister Xiang was scooping soup for herself when she suddenly heard Su Qingsang's name. She suddenly put down the bowl and stared at the TV screen. The name Su Qingsang had appeared several times, but she seemed to have only heard it once in Lin City. In order to make sure that she didn't hear it wrong, she asked the auntie to replay the TV again. Soon, the news was broadcasted again. This time, Sister Xiang heard it clearly. Lin City Su Qingsang. Surnamed Su, and with this name? That's right, it can't be wrong. It was her. It had to be her. She still remembered that when she was with that heartless man, they had a wonderful time. She said that she liked the name Qingsang. If she had a daughter in the future, she would call her Qingsang. If she had a son, she would call him Qingha. Su Qingsang, Su Qingsang. Sister Xiang repeated the name twice in her heart. Chapter 240. Her mind was a little confused, but she was more excited. Countless thoughts kept surging through her mind, until the auntie called her. Sister Xiang, why don't you eat? The dishes are going to get cold. When she came back to her senses, Sister Xiang was looking at her with an inquisitive and a little worried gaze. She smiled at the auntie to show that she was fine. This smile stunned the auntie for a moment. She hadn't seen Sister Xiang smile for a long time. Sister Xiang's expression couldn't immediately calm down. She endured it, and the expression on her face slowly returned to normal. Sister Xiang. The auntie finally couldn't restrain her curiosity. What do you think of today's dishes? Pretty good. Sister Xiang, you haven't gone out these days. Do you want to go out today? The weather forecast says that it will be sunny these few days, and it will rain in a few days. It will snow in a few days. Okay, I'll go out for a while. The auntie became more and more frightened. It seemed that Sister Xiang was really going to go out. She hurriedly said, I'll get the car ready later. Where are you going? I'll accompany you. Look at you. It's too late now. You'll go out tomorrow. That's right. The auntie smiled. She focused on eating again. However, she still felt that there was something wrong with Sister Xiang today. Sister Xiang glanced at the screen and thought that she must go out tomorrow. She wanted to find Su Qingsang. She wanted to tell her that she was her mother, and she wanted to tell her that Sister Xiang suddenly stopped eating. She had just found out that Su Qingsang was in Rong City. The excitement of knowing that she was in the same city as her had faded away. She thought of something else. She had once promised that as long as Su Qingsang lived a good life, she would never acknowledge her in this life. She had promised that she would not acknowledge Su Qingsang. Since that was the case, why should she acknowledge her? Her heart sank bit by bit, and Sister Xiang's face returned to its usual gray color. The auntie watched Sister Xiang's expression change, and didn't react at all. She had been with Sister Xiang for many years, and had long known that Sister Xiang was like this. Gloomy, cold, serious, and not easy to get close to. Sister Xiang's eyes returned to the screen. The program had long been changed. She couldn't even hear that name anymore, let alone that person. Now what was she going to do? After being pestered by Hu Jinniao for most of the night, Su Qingsang didn't even have the strength to fight back. His hands and feet were weak, and he was too lazy to even move his fingers. She glared at Hu Jinniao, then turned her back to him. She didn't want to look at him at all. Hu Jinniao shamelessly reached out to put his arms around her waist, and put his chin on her neck. Honey, are you angry? Who has the time to be angry with you? Su Qingsang refused to admit it. She patted his hand and asked him to let go of her. However, such a simple action caused her arm to ache. His anger grew. Let me go. I won't. If you don't let go, I'm going to get angry. If I let him go, I'll be discouraged. Hua Jinyao nibbled on her neck as he spoke. Honey, I can't sleep well without you in my arms. Nonsense. So you haven't had a good night's sleep for the past 30 years? Yes, Hua Jinyao said half-truthfully. Before you married me, before you let me hold you to sleep, I had nightmares every day. Chapter 241. Hua Jinyao didn't speak. Su Qingsang suddenly turned to look at him. Did I get it right? Are you hiding something from me again? How could I? I'm lying in front of you now. How could I hide anything from you? As Hua Jinyao spoke, he put his arm around her waist and pulled her back into his arms. You better not. Su Qingsang didn't like being lied to. She didn't want Hua Jinyao to lie to her again in the future. Honey, I just suddenly realized that I seem to be too merciful. You're still so energetic. Why don't we do it again? No. Her waist was going to break if he did it again. Hua Jinyao, give me a little more. Don't do it again. There was a hint of pleading in her words. Hua Jinyao also knew that he had gone too far just now. He was just joking. All right. If you say no, I won't. Hua Jinyao lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. Honey, go to sleep. Don't disturb me. I'll naturally fall asleep. As she spoke, she didn't forget to pull his hand away. Stay away from me. I really want to sleep. I just want to sleep. Do you hear me? She was really sleepy. Ever since she got together with Hua Jinyao, she felt that she didn't have enough sleep. However, this guy didn't know how to control himself at all. He did it again and again. He wouldn't let her go unless he squeezed out all her energy. He was really too bad. All right, I'll let you sleep. I swear, I promise I won't do anything stupid, okay? Su Qingsang yawned and reluctantly believed him. She was really sleepy. After closing her eyes for a while, she fell asleep. Hua Jinyao watched her fall asleep easily. He tightened his arms and held her in his arms. He fell asleep smelling the faint fragrance of her body. After the two of them had been together for the past few months, they had always been like this. However, he didn't know if what Su Qingsang had said before had some effect. That night, the nightmare that hadn't come for a long time came again. Those familiar scenes that were engraved in his bones replayed over and over again. Hua Jinyao tried his best to get rid of them, but in the end, he could only wake up panting. It was dark in front of him. He reached out his hand to turn on the light. The familiar environment allowed him to relax. The warmth at his side made him turn his face away. His eyes fell on Su Qingsang's face. Was that a guilty conscience? Does it count? Shaking his head to stop thinking about that, he put his arms around Su Qingsang's waist again and let her snuggle against him. Su Qingsang didn't wake up. She found a relatively comfortable position in his arms and fell asleep again. Her breathing was long and balanced, and her cheeks were flushed with a healthy and attractive red. He leaned over and kissed her on the cheek, his gaze gentle. Since he didn't intend to let her know about some things, then he would never let her know. Hugging her waist tightly, he pressed her body closer to his before falling asleep again. This time, the nightmare did not come. It was a dreamless sleep until dawn. Su Qingsang stayed in Rong City for a week. Over the past week, Hua Jinyao had been very busy and had a lot of things to do. She didn't stay idle either. She knew what Hua Jinyao was thinking. He wanted her to have a chance to come to Rong City. She had also seriously considered this matter. It was true that Cheng Xianyun's family owned a hospital. They also owned 2 Class 3 Grade A hospitals, but they were both private. The fees weren't low, and there weren't many patients. Chapter 242. A doctor's skills had to be demonstrated in practice. It wouldn't be a good thing for her if she kept thinking about relaxing. After a few days of observation, she felt that Rong City First City Hospital was the best. Firstly, it was very close to Hua Jinyao's company. Secondly, the obstetrics and gynecology department was also very famous in the area. If she really had to come, Su Qingsang was more inclined to go to Rong City First City Hospital. She finished her observation, but she wasn't in a hurry to tell Hua Jinyao the result. Hua Jinyao spent a week dealing with some important business matters. He also told old Master Hua that he would leave the next day. Although old Master Hu was reluctant, it wasn't like his grandson wouldn't come back. What's more, Su Qingsang might come back with him. He repeatedly advised Su Qingsang to come to Rong City if possible. After all, Hu Jinniao would only be busier in the future. He flew around all year round. If she was in Rong City, he could take care of her more. Su Qingsang really liked old Master Hua. She was also slowly considering his proposal. However, she didn't say anything. She hoped that she could really come to Rong City and give old Master Hua a surprise. It had rained a few days ago, and Rong City was a little colder. Su Qingsang and Hu Jinniao were on the plane the next day. After thinking about it, she still went out in the afternoon. She wasn't close to the Su family, but she had a good relationship with the people in the department. And Shi Mengwan. She wanted to pick out some gifts for them. Hu Jinniao took the initiative to go out with her. He knew better than her what kinds of specialties there were in Rong City. Su Qingsang looked at her phone contacts and asked Hu Jinniao for his opinion. What else do you think I can buy besides some food? Hu Jinniao mentioned a few things, all of which were specialties of Rong City. Seeing Su Qingsang take a small notebook, he wanted to laugh. I told you Wan Xianying's family has several factories. He specializes in these things. I asked him to send some over, but you said no. I don't want it. Su Qingsang glanced at him. I'm buying things for people, so of course I have to pay. If you ask him to send it over, will he ask you for money? He wouldn't dare. Hu Jinniao chuckled. He wouldn't dare to accept it even if I gave it to him. That's right. Su Qingsang had met Northerners before, and knew that they were generous. But this was different. Don't worry about it. Just take me to that place. I'll buy it myself. Okay. I'll listen to you. He leaned over and squeezed her hand. Honey, I've listened to you during the day. Shouldn't you listen to me at night? Su Qingsang smiled and said, I've listened to you during the day. Stop messing around. Su Qingsang blushed. This guy couldn't think of anything else other than this every day. Can you focus on driving? Okay, I'll drive. Hu Jinniao withdrew his hand. There was a turn right in front of him. He was about to turn the car over, when a figure suddenly flashed out of the corner. Hu Jinniao couldn't dodge in time, so he quickly braked. Fortunately, the speed of the car wasn't too fast. Otherwise, it would have hit someone. When the car stopped, Su Qingsang was startled. After Hu Jinniao got out of the car, she got out as well. There was a middle-aged woman sitting in front of the car. She looked to be in her 50s, and her hair was half white. She was sitting on the ground in pain. Auntie, are you all right? Hu Jinniao immediately went forward to help the man up. Su Qingsang quickly followed. She was a doctor, and knew how to deal with external injuries. Chapter 243. Don't move her. I'll check for her. People at this age were most afraid of bumping into things. It would be bad if something happened to them. Su Qingsang squatted down and said softly to Xiang Kaiping, who was sitting on the ground, Auntie, I'm a doctor. Can you tell me where you hit yourself? Where does it hurt? Can you move your hands and feet? Xiang Kaiping looked at the young woman in front of her. Her face dazzled her for a moment. Really like. Perhaps not quite. But she did look like that person. She did not look like herself, but more like that person. She almost didn't need to ask anymore. Just by looking at this face, what else could she not understand? Auntie. Hu Jinniao squatted down as well. At the same time, he took out his phone to call an ambulance. Su Qingsang reached out and waved her hand in front of Xiang Kaiping. Auntie, can you hear me? Auntie. You. Xiang Kaiping said you twice, but she couldn't bring herself to say it. Where does it hurt? Tell me. Su Qingsang was afraid that she would hit herself too hard. As for why he didn't say that he hit hard, she was sitting in the front seat, so she knew that Hu Jinniao's car didn't hit the woman. She was just startled by the sudden appearance of the car and fell. She called out a few times, but the auntie only had a pained expression on her face. She didn't say where she was hurt. Su Qingsang's expression suddenly changed. Was this old auntie here to blackmail her? She couldn't help but look at Hu Jinniao. Hu Jinniao had already finished the call. Soon the ambulance arrived. When he saw the worried look on Su Qingsang's face, he was confused. Qingsang, what's wrong? Qingsang? Yes, it's her. Xiang Kaiping's eyes, which were already a little misty, widened again. It really was her. You. Xiang Kaiping was so agitated that she blushed. His voice also became a little sluggish. All these years, other than the auntie who took care of her daily life, she basically didn't speak much. He couldn't find the words to organize his words. Seeing this, the suspicion on Su Qingsang's face was replaced by worry. Auntie, are you all right? Auntie? How could she call her aunt? I am. Xiang Kaiping was about to reveal her identity when she felt a pain in her waist. Auntie, don't move. You might have accidentally twisted your waist. As Su Qingsang spoke, she pressed Xiang Kaiping's body down to prevent her from getting up. Xiang Kaiping wanted to say something, but when she saw Hua Jinyao standing there, she couldn't say anything. Hua Jinyao also thought that the woman who suddenly fell to the ground was a scammer. This kind of thing happened too often, especially to someone like him who drove a luxury car. However, even if it was a scam, he was not afraid. However, this woman didn't look like an ordinary scammer. She had been acting very well up until now, and she didn't ask for much compensation. Also, why did she keep staring at Su Qingsang? Do you think it's easier to talk to women? Auntie, bear with it for a while. I'll take a look at your wound and do some emergency treatment. Su Qingsang noticed that the woman had been staring at her. She seemed to be on guard, but it also seemed to be something else. She whispered in a very gentle voice, "Don't worry. I'm a doctor." Doctor? Her daughter was actually a doctor? The bitterness in Xiang Kaiping's eyes deepened. All these years, she had never seen her daughter. I didn't even know she was a doctor. Good, very good. Chapter 244. Don't move in a hurry. Be careful of a second injury to your lumbar spine. Su Qingsang held her body down and didn't let her move. Xiang Kaiping didn't move. She just looked at Su Qingsang, as if she couldn't get enough of her. Su Qingsang examined her, and didn't find any fractures or other serious injuries. It was probably just a sprain. She still suspected that this woman was trying to blackmail her, but she couldn't be sure now that the other party didn't have any further impulse. The ambulance arrived soon. Su Qingsang helped the doctor put Xiang Kaiping into the car, and told the doctor about her preliminary diagnosis. The doctor nodded to show that he understood. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao were going to leave, but after thinking about it, they went to the hospital. After entering the hospital, Hua Jinyao was afraid that this woman was trying to blackmail her, so he asked someone to check her body from head to toe. Xiang Kaiping was fine. Her palms were a little bruised and her waist was sprained. There were no other serious injuries. Hua Jinyao didn't see her as a blackmailer, because the other party didn't say anything about compensation. Auntie, there's nothing serious. We've already paid for the hospitalization fees. You just need to stay here for a few more days. Hearing Su Qingsang's words, Xiang Kaiping became anxious. You're not going to stay here to take care of me? Sure enough, this was really a blackmailer. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao looked at each other, and the same emotion flashed in their eyes. Auntie, your injury is not serious. Your injury isn't very serious. If you want someone to take care of you, I can hire a caregiver for you. I want you to take care of me. Xiang Kaiping held her hand and sounded a little anxious. I'm afraid that's not possible. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. Auntie, I'm not from Rong City. I'm leaving tomorrow, so I'm sorry. But don't worry. I'll hire a good caregiver to take care of you. You're leaving? Xiang Kaiping was stunned. She had seen the news and naturally knew that Su Qingsang was from Lin City. She actually knew without looking. However, she didn't say anything. And she was leaving? Yes, Auntie. Su Qingsang's attitude was quite good. After all, she was also a doctor. I said don't worry. I'll have someone take care of you until you recover. But Xiang Kaiping didn't know what else she could say. She couldn't say a word, but she felt that she had a lot to say. Hua Jinyao frowned. He had seen too many people like this. They pretended to be pitiful to gain sympathy, but in the end, they wanted to extort money. Qingsang. Hua Jinyao pulled Su Qingsang to his side, blocking most of her body. She looked at Xiang Kaiping, who was lying on the bed with a face full of secrets. Hello, Auntie. I was the one who drove just now. If you're looking for her, you've got the wrong person. Xiang Kaiping's lips moved. Hua Jinniao continued, she's my wife. If you have any requests, just tell me. As for taking care of you, I'm sorry. My wife is inconvenienced. I can hire someone to take care of you. It was the first time that Xiang Kaiping had laid her eyes on Hua Jinniao. She looked at him, then at Su Qingsang. Who would have thought that she was actually married? Yes, she was 25 years old this year, so it was normal for her to get married. Chapter 245. Auntie, just say it. It was just a sprained waist. He also wanted to see how much this woman could ask for. What do you want? Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Qingsang again. I want her to take care of me for 2 days. Impossible. How could Hua Jinniao let his wife take care of a stranger? How much money do you want? Just say it. Or what compensation do you want? Just say it. But she can't stay and take care of you for a few days. I don't want money. Xiang Kaiping didn't expect that one day she would be misunderstood as asking for money. She was anxious. I really don't want money. I don't want her to, Auntie. Su Qingsang knew that Hua Jinniao wanted to protect her, but she really wasn't afraid. I'm really sorry. If you have other requests, we can satisfy them. I really can't stay. Her vacation ended tomorrow, and she would start working the day after tomorrow. She would go back tomorrow and rest for half a day. How about this? I'll help you hire a caregiver. Or, you can tell me your family's contact information, and I'll contact your family. Family? Xiang Kaiping smiled bitterly and looked at Su Qingsang. I have no family. Su Qingsang was speechless and turned to look at Hua Jinniao. What should she do? Hua Jinniao frowned, looked at her, and shook his head. He gestured for her to ignore him. Auntie, I understand how you feel. But we do have something to do. How about this? I'll ask someone to come over. Don't worry, we will never run away. We will definitely take responsibility. Hua Jinniao's attitude was sincere. If it weren't for Su Qingsang's kindness, he would have called his assistant to deal with this matter. Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Qingsang and wanted to say something, but stopped on second thought. Her eyes were red. Hua Jinniao didn't have the patience to watch this kind of sad drama. He squeezed Su Qingsang's hand and gestured for her to leave with him. Auntie will leave first. Don't worry. We promised to take responsibility until the end. Qingsang, let's go. If she didn't let Su Qingsang contact with that woman, who knew what she wanted? Xiang Kaiping was still struggling. She knew that she had wronged Su Qingsang, but she wasn't sure if Su Qingsang would accept her. She was even more afraid that Su Qingsang wouldn't believe her. She was also afraid that Su Qingsang would blame her for not taking care of her after believing her. By the time Xiang Kaiping realized what was going on, Hua Jinniao had already left with Su Qingsang. Hua Jinniao did not go back on his word. Yang Wenchang soon arrived. She was here to deal with this incident, which seemed to be a small matter in Hua Jinniao's opinion. Xiang Kaiping's disappointment was obvious, but no matter how hard she asked, Yang Wenchang refused to reveal any more information about the two of them. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinniao were not in the mood to shop because of what happened to Xiang Kaiping. Let's go. We'll go home after we buy some things. All right. Su Qingsang didn't refuse, but she still felt that something wasn't right. Hua Jinniao, did you notice that there was something strange about that auntie? Especially when he looked at her. It seemed like there were thousands of words in his eyes. It was the first time Su Qingsang had been looked at like that. That feeling was really subtle. Did I? Hua Jinniao thought so too. But his feeling was completely different from Su Qingsang. I think there's something wrong with her eyes. Why? Chapter 246. That's why I said it felt weird. Su Qingsang looked at herself, and then at Hua Jinniao. The way she looked at me didn't look like she wanted to blackmail me. Instead, it looked like... Su Qingsang couldn't put her finger on it, but she also felt that it was strange. She was dressed very normally this time. Even though Hua Jinniao had prepared many brands of clothes for her to hang in the closet, she was more used to wearing her own clothes. As for Hua Jinniao, he had to work these few days. Even if the brand of the suit he was wearing couldn't be seen, anyone with a bit of insight could tell that it was worth a lot of money from the handmade feeling. However, Xiang Kaiping kept clinging to her, and did not even look at Hua Jinniao. Wasn't this too strange? There's another possibility. Hua Jinyao thought more than Su Qingsang. Is it possible that she thinks women are easier to talk to? Did she deliberately pester you because you're my wife? It wasn't impossible, but Su Qingsang still didn't think it was the right answer. Forget it, I won't think about it anymore. Let's go. Didn't you say you wanted to buy a gift? Okay. Su Qingsang nodded and left with Hua Jinyao. The next day, Su Qingsang got up early to practice Tai Chi with Old Master Hua. She had been accompanying Old Master Hua in the mornings for the past few days. It had only been a few days, so naturally, she hadn't learned much. Old Master Hua was very patient. He didn't expect Su Qingsang to learn at once. He just wanted someone to accompany him. Every morning, Su Qingsang would practice boxing with Old Master Hua, and Hua Jinyao would swim in the pool nearby. After a few days, Old Master Hua was more and more satisfied with Su Qingsang. The two of them got along very well, except for the other members of the Hua family. She was going to leave today, but Su Qingsang accompanied Old Master Hua to practice boxing as she did a few days ago. Are you tired? All right, let's call it a day. Old Master Hua stopped and looked at Su Qingsang lovingly. Qingsang, are you going back to Lin City today? Yes. Su Qingsang nodded, and there was a hint of reluctance on her face. Grandpa, I will miss you. Remember to call more often. I will. Qingsang. Old Master Hua glanced at the swimming pool. Hua Jinyao was still swimming. He shouldn't be able to hear us, right? Jinyao, this child. He doesn't look 5 or 6 sometimes, but this boy, he's not what you see. Old Master Hua was still thinking about what to say. Su Qingsang looked at Old Master Hua and waited for him to finish his words without blinking. Actually, it wasn't like this in the past, because something had happened. Before Jinyao's mother, Dad. The sudden voice made Old Master Hua stop mid-sentence. He turned his head and saw that Lu Tongjia had arrived without him noticing. Tongjia. Old Master Hua didn't say anything. Lu Tongjia glanced at Su Qingsang. That look made Su Qingsang shrink her neck. Lu Tongjia didn't look at her anymore. She just looked at Old Master Hua. It was his uncle on the phone. He's looking for you. Okay. Old Master Hua glanced at Su Qingsang and went back into the room to answer the phone. Chapter 247. Su Qingsang frowned slightly, but Lu Tongjia wasn't afraid that she would be unhappy. Jinyao is my son. I know him very well. It was impossible for him to truly like a woman. Therefore, even if you have the title of the young mistress of the Hua family, you don't have to be complacent, because it's hard to say how long you'll be able to occupy this position. Auntie, you misunderstood. The smile on Su Qingsang's face was faint. Jinyao is your son, but I don't think you know him well. Also, you underestimated me. I'm not with Jinyao because I want to be the young mistress of the Hua family. As for how long you said I can occupy it, the benevolent see benevolence, and the wise see wisdom. At least, I think I can keep it. Is that so? Let's just wait and see. Lu Tongjia's expression was unfriendly, and her tone became more firm. Don't worry, Auntie. I'll treat this as motivation. Su Qingsang smiled calmly. She wasn't moved by Lu Tongjia's words at all. Lu Tongjia didn't get the upper hand. Her face grew colder and colder. With a snort, he turned around and left. On the other side, Hua Jinyao had already come out of the water. The weather was so cold, but he was not afraid. She only wrapped a bathrobe around her body and came over. He didn't see Old Master Hua, only Lu Tongjia leaving. What did my mother say? Standing in front of Su Qingsang, Hua Jinyao looked concerned. Nothing much. If she says anything, just ignore her. Hua Jinyao knew that he was wet, so he didn't hug Su Qingsang. He just squeezed her hand. Got it. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinyao. The concern in his eyes didn't seem to be fake, and his kindness towards her wasn't fake either. She didn't think that Hua Jinyao's love for her was fake, nor did she think that Hua Jinyao married her for any purpose. If she hadn't seen the power of the Hua family before, she would have been a little hesitant, but there was no need to do so now. What kind of family did the Hua family have? What kind of family did the Su family have? This was completely incomparable. Although she was curious about the reason why Hua Jinyao married her, so what? She had always liked to look forward. No matter what the beginning was like, At least now, she felt good. That was enough. After dinner, the Hua family's chauffeur sent them to the airport. Lu Tongjia wasn't there. She didn't plan to send her son off, and Hua Jinyao wouldn't ask her to. In fact, Su Qingsang was also curious about why the relationship between Hua Jinyao and Lu Tongjia was so tense. She was just curious, but she had no intention of asking. Hua Jinyao would say it when he wanted to. The plane landed at the airport in Lin City. The people arranged by Hua Jinyao had already come to pick them up. Su Qingsang heaved a sigh of relief when she got home. No matter how luxurious the Hua family was, she still felt that her own place was the best. It was already early winter, and the temperature in Lin City had dropped. Su Qingsang lay on the bed and watched Hua Jinyao carry the clothes into the walk-in closet. She turned over and looked at him. Hua Jinyao. Just now, Hua Jinyao brought in 2 suitcases. As for the things she bought, they were all in the living room, waiting for Su Qingsang to give them away tomorrow. Is it unfair for you to live in such a small house? Hua Jinyao stopped cleaning, walked to the bed and sat down. What? Do you want to move? Of course not. No matter how small it was still her own nest. I just feel wronged for you, young Master Hua. Chapter 248. Isn't it? Su Qingsang said half-jokingly. Look at my room. It's not even as big as your cloakroom. She was lying on the bed with her hair cascading down her face. There was a hint of gentleness in her elegance. My house isn't even as big as your living room. Think about it, Hua Xiao. You've always lived in a big house. And now you're living in mine. Can't I feel wronged on your behalf? You feel bad for me, don't you? Hua Jinyao's eyes darkened, and his hand tickled her waist a few times. Su Qingsang shrunk her body and laughed. Don't come. Are you going to tell me or not? Hua Jinyao kept scratching her. Are you going to feel sorry for me? No need. No. Su Qingsang laughed so hard that she couldn't even breathe. She kept begging for mercy. Hua Jinyao withdrew his hand. Her hair was messy. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were misty. Seeing her like this made his throat tighten. He lowered his head and pressed his forehead against hers. I still want to punish you. What should I do? Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang blushed even more. She stopped laughing because she was embarrassed. I'm going to punish you a little more so that you'll remember it. Don't talk nonsense next time, don't you think? Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang tried to avoid him. Stop it. It's daytime. It's better during the day. Hua Jinyao grabbed her waist. This time, he wasn't trying to tickle her. Soon, the voices in the room changed, and so did the atmosphere. When Su Qingsang entered the hospital, she was holding a large box in her hands. She entered the department and handed out the specialties she brought back from Rong City to everyone. She had been wrong previously and had asked for leave. Everyone in the department thought that she was putting on a show and throwing a tantrum. As soon as Su Qingsang came back, she openly told everyone that she had gone on a honeymoon. After giving out these gifts, no one would say that the lass was deliberately putting on a show. After that, Su Qingsang went to the hospital administration and gave Deputy Director Yang and Director Lin a copy. Although they didn't help much last time, they still spoke up for her. The last one was naturally for Zhua Hongchen. However, he went to perform surgery. Su Qingsang left the things on his desk and left. Back in the office, Su Qingsang threw herself back into her busy work. After staying here for a long time, she still liked the environment here. Therefore, she would not easily consider changing places and working in Rong City. He had just returned to work, so he wasn't particularly busy. When it was time to get off work, basically no one came to the emergency department. She packed up all the files and was about to shut down and get off work. Someone knocked on the door. He looked up and saw Su Peijian. She stood at the door expressionlessly and glanced at Su Qingsang's office with a flash of disgust in her eyes. What's up? Su Peijian withdrew her gaze, entered the room, and closed the door. He stopped in front of Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang raised her head to look at her. Miss Su, are you feeling unwell? She was in the gynecology department. It was either pregnancy or gynecology. What nonsense are you talking about? Su Peijian's face turned green. She glared at Su Qingsang, her face full of displeasure. Then what is it? She couldn't be blamed for overthinking. She was in the hospital. Chapter 249. Seeing that Su Qingsang didn't speak, Su Peijian took a step forward. What? Can't tell? Do you think I won't know if you don't tell me? Su Qingsang had a headache. She had forgotten about it after staying in Rong City for a week. I really don't know. You don't know? Su Peijian didn't believe it at all. Su Qingsang, if you want to hold back and laugh at me, you won't get what you want. Sister, you think too much. Su Qingsang rarely called Su Peijian sister. Every time she called her sister that, it meant that she was really helpless. I don't have to lie to you. I really don't know. You really don't know, or you really don't dare to say it. Su Peijian took a step forward and stood in front of Su Qingsang. She tried her best to control her expression, but some anger could still be seen on her face. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I don't know? Su Qingsang, that woman is you. Su Qingsang was startled by his sudden cold tone, but she quickly reacted after a few seconds. Sister, I really don't know. What's more, if the person Qiu Yanba likes is me, why would he wait until we're engaged to talk about it? It's not realistic at all. She said it very seriously, so seriously that she believed it herself. Su Peijian looked at her deeply, knowing that Su Qingsang's words were not unreasonable. She nodded her head heavily. Okay, Su Qingsang, since you said it has nothing to do with you, then I will believe you this time. But only this time. If I find out that the person in Yanba's heart is you, or that you are deliberately hiding something, then don't blame me for being rude. She wasn't a bad person, and she didn't want to deal with an illegitimate daughter like Su Qingsang. But if she really offended her, she would definitely not be polite. After throwing this warning, Su Peijian turned and left, leaving Su Qingsang rubbing her eyebrows helplessly. What she did just now shouldn't be considered a lie, right? In Rong City, Su Qingsang had not only bought gifts for the people in her department, but also for the Su family. But after Su Qingsang's trouble, she didn't want to come to her. If Su Peijian and Li Qinxue decided that she was the reason why Su Peijian couldn't get engaged to Qiu Yanba, she would be in even more trouble. When she got home, Su Qingsang called a courier to pack her things and send them to the Su family. As for whether Su Qinghui would be dissatisfied or angry, it was none of her business. In any case, she had done her part. At the same time, there was a gift for Shi Mingwan. After thinking about it, he called Shi Mingwan and asked her to meet him. Shi Mingwan had been very busy these few days, except for the few orders she had received. She also participated in a very famous wedding dress design competition in the domestic industry. She attached great importance to this competition, so much so that she had been drawing day and night. But she was always not satisfied with it, so she tore it up. When she received Su Qingsang's call, she remembered that she hadn't seen her for a long time. The two of them arranged a place to meet and have a meal together. Not long after Shi Mingwan sat down, she remembered to remind Su Qingsang of something. Your sister came to the wedding dress shop to look for me twice. She kept asking me if I knew who the woman who made Qiu Yanba change his mind was. I've already passed the buck. Be careful. I'm afraid she'll cause you trouble. Chapter 250. It's okay. Su Qingsang knew that her friend cared about her. She already came to me, but I said I didn't know, and she couldn't do anything to me. That's true. Shi Mingwan thought of the Su family and began to feel uncomfortable. But you'd better stay away from them. I don't think any of them are good people. Don't be like that. They just don't like me. It's not a bad thing. Pfft. Shi Mingwan sneered. That's because you have a good temper. If it were me, I would have turned the world upside down. All right, I know you're doing this for my own good. Thank you. If you really want to thank me, today's meal is on you. No problem. Su Qingsang answered readily. Shi Mingwan slapped her forehead hard. Look at me. I've been drawing so much that I've lost my mind. Your family has such a powerful background. You don't need money now. I didn't say anything. It's his business that he's rich. It's not my money. Don't provoke me. Shi Mingwan clutched her chest and looked hurt. You just randomly got a man to marry, And you managed to get such a high-quality man. I'm going to be jealous of you. Su Qingsang's eyes softened when she thought of Hu Jiniao. Well, she was indeed lucky. I'm lucky. There's no way out. Shi Mengwan leaned on the table with a lifeless look. Have you ever considered the feelings of a single dog like me when you're showing off your love? All right. Stop acting. Su Qingsang took out the gift and pushed it in front of Shi Mengwan. Here, make up for your hurt heart. That's more like it. Shi Mengwan took the gift with a miserly look on her face, which made Su Qingsang smile again. With such a good friend in Lin City, she really didn't want to leave for Rong City, so she'd better go to Rong City first. Rong City? Sister Xiang, your back is completely healed? You're discharged already? The aunt had taken care of Xiang Kaiping in the hospital for a few days. She was fine, but she was still a little worried. I'm fine. Xiang Kaiping shook her head. She touched the back of her waist. It was still a little painful, but it was no big deal. Sister Xiang, Mr. Yang left a lot of money. He said it was compensation. Xiang Kaiping frowned. The Mr. Yang the auntie was referring to was Yang Wenchang. Apart from showing concern on the first day, he came to the hospital. For the rest of the time, he hired a caregiver to take care of Xiang Kaiping every day. Today, when he heard that Xiang Kaiping had been discharged from the hospital, he came again to deliver a check. Xiang Kaiping didn't ask for it, because the aunt had been taking care of her for the past few days. Yang Wenchang thought that the lady worked for Xiang Kaiping and gave her the check. The woman handed the check to Xiang Kaiping. Xiang Kaiping looked at the check with disgust in her eyes. He took it and tore it into pieces without a second thought. The auntie's mouth was wide open. One had to know that this was 100,000 yuan. She had sprained her waist, and the other party had paid 100,000 yuan for the medical expenses. The auntie felt that it was a lot. Xiang Kaiping did not explain further. She thought about the decision she had made in the past few days. I am very grateful to you for taking care of me all these years. However, I want to go to Lin City. Sister Xiang, are you going to Lin City? The auntie's surname was Chen. She had taken care of Xiang Kaiping for a few years. This was the first time she heard her say that she wanted to leave Rong City and go to such a far place. Yes, I want to go to Rong City. Chapter 251. Su Qingsang hung up the phone with a faint smile on her face. Hu Jiniao saw it from the side. He turned over and pressed her under his body. Why are you so happy? Just now when he went to take a shower, he was still on the phone. Well, he actually wanted to ask her who she was chatting with for so long. Nothing. Su Qingsang shook her head. The wedding dress designed by Mengwan entered the finals. It was Shi Mengwan again. The smile on Hu Jiniao's face faded a little. You really care about her. He had picked the best present for Shi Mengwan. As soon as he came back, he went to Shi Mengwan's place to give her a present. For this, he had even neglected her. Later, when Shi Mengwan participated in the competition, she drew day and night. She was even more attentive than when she participated in the competition. From time to time, she would send some soup and water to her, saying that it was to nourish her body. She had never given him one before. This was too biased. Mengwan is my good friend. Of course I care about her. Moreover, although Shi Mengwan had parents, she lived alone outside. Then why don't I see you paying more attention to me? As Hu Jiniao spoke, he kissed her on the cheek again. There was some dissatisfaction in his eyes. You don't even care about me so much. You're talking nonsense again. Su Qingsang didn't want to admit it, but thinking about it carefully, she seemed to have neglected him a lot recently. Over the past few days, she had been in the hospital during the day and had to rush a thesis at night. This was the disadvantage of being a doctor. From time to time, you would have to take exams and write papers. No matter how professional you were, these were still necessary. He used the remaining time to accompany Shi Mengwan. She had really neglected Hu Jiniao. All right, what do you want me to do? She reflected on the fact that she had been back for more than a week and realized that she had not been a good wife. Su Qingsang thought that maybe she could satisfy some of his small requirements. Listen to me tonight. Hu Jiniao's first request made Su Qingsang blushed. Was this a request? Which night did she not listen to him? Hu Jiniao also realized that this request didn't count, so he made another request. Our company has recently negotiated a cooperation project. Almost all the reputable companies in Lin City have participated in some of the cooperation, so the company decided to hold a banquet next week. At that time, you can attend as the hostess. Attend a banquet? Su Qingsang seemed to be in a dilemma. Does the Su family also include the Su family? The Li family? You have enemies? Of course. The Su family wasn't very friendly to Su Qingsang. However, he couldn't deny the strength of these few families. After all, to be able to take root in Lin City for so many years, it was impossible not to have strength. It was a collaboration. Hello. Can I not go? She hadn't met Su Peijian for the past few days. However, Su Qinghui had specially called her last time when he delivered the things to her. On the one hand, he said that she was impolite. She actually sent a gift by express delivery. On the one hand, he wanted to ask her who Qiu Yanba liked. It was fine if they didn't bump into each other. But what if they did bump into each other at the banquet? If Qiu Yanba made any moves, no. Hu Jiniao squeezed her little hand. I want to introduce you to everyone. I want to let them know that you're my wife. She's the wife of the president of Tianyu Group. Su Qingsang looked at the focus in his eyes. He introduced her to his family, then to his friends, and now to his business partner. She suddenly understood his intentions. After thinking for a while, she nodded her head lightly. Chapter 252. The banquet Hu Jiniao mentioned was on Friday night. Su Qingsang didn't have to go to work the next day. She worked the night shift the night before, and slept at home on Friday morning. When she woke up, she received a call from Hu Jiniao. He said that he had sent someone to deliver clothes. When Su Qingsang hung up the phone, Yang Wenchang arrived. Not only did he send clothes, but he also brought 2 stylists to do Su Qingsang's hair. Su Qingsang didn't expect Hu Jiniao to be so considerate. After thanking Yang Wenchang, she entered the room with the 2 stylists. An hour later, Su Qingsang was done. When she stood up and was about to leave, she found that Hu Jiniao had come back. You're back. Seeing Hu Jiniao in the mirror, Su Qingsang quickly turned around with a look of surprise on her face. Yes, I'm here to pick you up. Hu Jiniao looked at Su Qingsang, his eyes full of amazement. The dress he chose for Su Qingsang was a white one-shoulder dress. There were no complicated decorations, just a simple white dress. He just put effort into the tailoring. The clean line from the right shoulder showed off her rounded shoulder. The dress was ankle-length, and underneath it was a pair of silver high heels he chose. The diamond-studded shoes looked noble and elegant. At the same time, it also lengthened Su Qingsang's height, making her look especially slender and graceful. The stylist only did a simple job on Su Qingsang's hair to match the dress. She curled a few big waves at the end of her hair and let it fall over her right shoulder. In this way, the shoulder was half covered, but it looked more sexy than if it was completely exposed. Honey, you're so beautiful today. Hu Jiniao was not stingy with his compliments. Su Qingsang blushed a little. There were people around. The 2 stylists were quite perceptive. They said goodbye and left. Hu Jiniao could now focus on his beautiful wife. He stepped forward, held Su Qingsang's hand, and looked her up and down. Honey, I have good taste, right? I picked this dress. Yes. Was she trying to praise her or herself? But it's still missing something. As Hu Jiniao spoke, he took 2 steps toward her. Su Qingsang saw that he was still holding a box in his hand. Su Qingsang watched him open the box. Inside was a 3-piece set of diamond jewelry. Pink diamonds of different sizes were arranged in a circle, and in the middle was a starlight design. The matching bracelet and earrings were also made of pink diamonds. They were so bright that they almost dazzled Su Qingsang. She looked at the necklace and thought of the diamond ring Hu Jiniao had given her. Well, you're not lying again, are you? Su Qingsang joked with him. She knew in her heart that it couldn't be false. Honey, you're so smart, Hu Jiniao joked. He picked up the necklace and put it on Su Qingsang. Hu Jiniao took the initiative to serve her. Looking at Su Qingsang in front of him, he took a step back, his eyes full of admiration. Perfect. Let's go. Wife, the banquet is about to begin. The banquet was booked in a villa on the outskirts of Lin City. Hua Jingyao told Su Qingsang that it was a small banquet. However, this banquet was not small at all. When Hua Jingyao and Su Qingsang arrived, many people had already arrived. Tianyu Group had been making frequent moves in Lin City in the past few months. Anyone with a bit of foresight would want to establish a relationship with the Tianyu Group. Of course, there were some people who didn't need to claim connections. They already had connections with the Tianyu Group. For example, Qiu Yanba. As one of the collaborators, he was also attending the banquet today. Chapter 253. Like most of the men who came today, when Qiu Yanba saw Su Qingsang, he was stunned. It was as if a person who was usually only 8 out of 10 had suddenly become 10 out of 10. Su Qingsang was indeed not an outstanding beauty. She looked gentle and beautiful. Because she studied medicine, she had a clean and refreshing temperament. She was standing next to Hua Jingyao. She was wearing a white dress, and Hua Jingyao was wearing a dark suit. When the two of them stood together, it was as if they were a golden couple. Su Qingsang stood next to Hua Jingyao. She didn't know much about business, but she was a very qualified listener. When Hua Jingyao chatted with others, she stood next to him and listened. Occasionally, when someone specifically asked her, Hua Jingyao had already begun to introduce her without her saying anything. This is my wife, Su Qingsang. Su. The surname Su wasn't a big one in Lin City, but there were only 1 or 2 famous Su families. Some people who had attended Su Qingsang and Hua Jingyao's wedding banquet recognized her immediately. Hua Jingyao was very famous in Lin City now, but he hadn't had the chance to meet him before. Soon, almost everyone in the banquet hall knew that the wife of the president of Tianyu Group, who showed her face for the first time in public, was Su Qingsang. Even more quickly, people knew Su Qingsang's identity. The illegitimate daughter of the Su family, a person who had almost been abandoned by her family, was actually the wife of the president of Tianyu Group? This was simply too shocking. This led to more and more people sizing up Su Qingsang, both openly and discreetly. Qiu Yanba walked towards Su Qingsang under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Are you tired? Hua Jingyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist. He had never seen her wear high heels. Although the shoes today weren't particularly high, they were much higher than the shoes she usually wore. I'm fine. She had just arrived. How was she tired? Su Qingsang shook her head and glanced at the banquet hall. Did your company specially rent this villa for the banquet? Hua Jingyao looked at her and shook his head. No. As he spoke, he kissed Su Qingsang on the cheek and whispered in her ear. You'll know later. He was acting mysteriously. If he didn't say anything, Su Qingsang wouldn't ask. Out of the corner of his eye, Hua Jingyao saw Qiu Yanba walking towards him. He frowned and his eyes darkened. Qingsang. President Hua. Qiu Yanba greeted the two of them. The way he addressed them was very familiar. Hua Jingyao looked at Qiu Yanba's outstretched hand and shook Qiu Yanba's. Boss Qiu is really punctual. It's my duty. Qiu Yanba smiled indifferently and ignored Hua Jingyao's piercing gaze. He withdrew his hand and reached out to Su Qingsang. Qingsang, you look beautiful today. Thank you. Su Qingsang was about to shake hands with him, but Hua Jingyao grabbed her hand and pulled her to his side. She's not just beautiful today. Hua Jingyao completely ignored Qiu Yanba's hand, which was still in the air, and kissed Su Qingsang on the cheek. In my eyes, Qingsang is beautiful every day. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. She quietly pinched Hua Jingyao's waist. How could he praise his wife like that? I didn't say anything wrong. Hua Jingyao didn't feel any pain from Su Qingsang's pinch. Instead, he leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. My wife is beautiful every day. Chapter 254. Qiu Yanba looked at Hua Jingyao's movements and calmly retracted his hand. Really? I think so too. Su Qingsang was even more embarrassed. She really couldn't accept Qiu Yanba's sudden friendliness. She looked at the entrance and found that the Su family had arrived. Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue would never want to attend this banquet if they had a choice. But now they couldn't. Hua Jingyao had revealed his identity, and also cooperated with the Li Corporation on a billion-dollar investment project. Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue could ignore Su Qingsang, but now they had to respect Hu Jiniao. Su Peijian came with them. Compared to Su Qingsang, who was wearing a white dress, she was wearing a very eye-catching red dress. Her facial features were more beautiful than Su Qingsang's. Coupled with the red dress, she looked flamboyant and gorgeous. As soon as she appeared at the door with Su Qinghui and his wife, it was very eye-catching. Everyone present looked at the Su family. Many people still had an impression of the previous wedding. For the Su family, that wedding was simple to the point of being shabby. The Su family's attitude towards Su Qingsang was obvious. But now it was different. Su Qingsang was married to Hu Jiniao. He was the young master of the Hu family in Rong City. The Su family must be regretting it so much that their intestines would turn green, right? Li Qianxue frowned as soon as she came in. She completely ignored the surrounding people's gazes and walked straight to Hu Jiniao. Dad, Auntie, you're here. Compared to the cold attitude of the Su family, Hu Jiniao's attitude could be said to be very friendly. What a coincidence. Mr. Qiu only arrived a few minutes earlier than you. He knew that Su Peijian and Qiu Yanba had broken off their engagement, but he still pretended not to know. Su Peijian's expression was a little ugly. She stood there without moving, only looking at Su Qingsang. Her gaze fell on the necklace around her neck. That was last month. The limited edition jewelry that Master William had just released. She hadn't ordered it yet, but Su Qingsang had already put it on? She was just an illegitimate daughter. Wasn't she afraid of losing her good fortune by being so flamboyant? Uncle Auntie. Compared to the Su family, Qiu Yanba's attitude was much more friendly. Peijian, long time no see. It's been a long time. Su Peijian withdrew her gaze from Su Qingsang and said expressionlessly, "To think that you still remember." Su Qingsang took a step back without a trace. She had a feeling that a fight was about to break out in this situation. Hu Jiniao squeezed her little hand, as if he knew what she was thinking. Dad, Auntie, I still have a few friends I need to take Qingsang to say hello to, so I'll have to wait for a while. Please help yourselves. Hu Jiniao left with Su Qingsang, leaving the Su family looking at each other, as if they couldn't believe that Hu Jiniao didn't give them face. Only Su Peijian noticed that when Su Qingsang was about to leave, Qiu Yanba's gaze lingered on her for a while longer. Was it unintentional, or was it intentional? After all, Su Qinghui was an experienced man. Even if he didn't like Qiu Yanba breaking off the engagement with his daughter, he still maintained his composure. Su Peijian had been observing Qiu Yanba the whole time. She barely noticed that his eyes were on Su Qingsang. She slowly relaxed. Just then, someone came over to greet her. She exchanged greetings with the newcomer. Chapter 255. Su Qingsang and Hu Jiniao met a circle of people, many of whom she had seen at the Su family's banquets before. However, at that time, her identity was the illegitimate daughter of the Su family. But now, she had become the wife of the president of Tianyu Group. Naturally, those people's attitudes also changed. This was actually quite an ironic thing. However, Su Qingsang wouldn't take these people's attitudes to heart. This was how the circle worked. Only those who were valued by their families would be recognized in the circle. Those who were not valued by their families would naturally not be looked upon favorably by their families. Halfway through the banquet, Su Qingsang saw Li Junxing arrive. It was a great honor for the Tianyu Group to be able to invite the mayor to the banquet. However, Su Qingsang, who had gone to Rong City and learned about the relationship between Hu Jiniao and Li Junxing, was not surprised. Hu Jiniao and Li Junxing were just ordinary friends. However, there were a lot of guests at the moment, so he still had to greet them. Go ahead. I'm going to the bathroom. All right. Hu Jiniao patted the back of her hand. Come here quickly after you're done. I still have to introduce Junxing to you. Su Qingsang couldn't help but roll her eyes at him, as if he was telling the truth. Coming out of the bathroom, Su Qingsang was about to walk through the corridor to the banquet hall, when a tall figure appeared in front of her. Her footsteps stopped, and she took a step back. Looking at the person in front of him, he nodded and was about to walk past him. Qingsang. Xiao Yanba looked at Su Qingsang with amazement and admiration in his eyes. You're so beautiful today. Today, Su Qingsang was so beautiful that he couldn't resist her. Thank you. Su Qingsang didn't want to waste any more time with Xiao Yanba. Others might not know, but she knew it very well. Ever since I left Qingyuan County, I haven't had the chance to meet with you. A long time has passed in the blink of an eye. What's the matter? Su Qingsang interrupted him. Her rather impolite attitude made Xiao Yanba smile bitterly. Qingsang, can't I look for you for no reason? No. Su Qingsang's refusal was straightforward and simple. I'm married and you're my brother-in-law. Your sister and I have already broken off our engagement. So what? Does it have anything to do with me? Of course. I broke off the engagement because of you. Stop. Su Qingsang had known about this before, but she still couldn't bear to hear Xiao Yanba repeat it again with such a resolute attitude. Xiao Yanba, you breaking off the engagement with my sister is your own business. It has nothing to do with me. Don't tell me it's for me. But I did it for you. When Xiao Yanba said this, he looked at her affectionately. If I had seen the good in you earlier, I wouldn't have gotten engaged to Su Peijian. Xiao Yanba. Su Qingsang was so angry that she almost laughed. Don't you feel guilty for saying that? How long had he been engaged to Su Peijian? How many years has it been? Speaking of which, the two of them were childhood sweethearts. And now you're saying it's inappropriate? Why did he put the blame on her? She thanked him, but she couldn't afford such a reason. Qingsang. Xiao Yanba sighed and took a step forward. I don't care if you believe me or not, and I don't care what you think, but I have to let you know how I feel. I got it. Can I go now? Su Qingsang tried to walk around him again, but Xiao Yanba reached out and grabbed her hand. Chapter 256. Who told you that I had no choice but to be with Hu Jingyao? Isn't it? Of course not. Even though she had gotten married casually in the beginning, her feelings for Hu Jingyao had slowly changed over the past few months. Do you like him? Xiao Yanba's expression was a little ugly. It was even more difficult for him to say those words. He's my husband. If I don't like him, do I like you? Su Qingsang didn't dare to say that she was in love with Hu Jingyao right now, but she really liked him. Xiao Yanba's expression was not good, and there was a clear flash of jealousy in his eyes. He looked at Su Qingsang's beautiful face. She was really beautiful, but such beauty had nothing to do with him. A wave of unwillingness surged in his heart. He reached out and hugged Su Qingsang. If you give me a chance, I think I can make you forget him and fall in love with me. Xiao Yanba. She didn't know that Xiao Yanba was so narcissistic. That's impossible. You haven't even tried, so how do you know it's impossible? Xiao Yanba's hand was still on her waist. The dress was light, and she could feel the warmth of his palm on the back of her waist. She was not used to it, and her face turned cold. Xiao Yanba, let go of me. What if I don't? She smelled so good. It wasn't the fragrance of perfume, but a light, extremely elegant fragrance. He couldn't help but move closer to smell it more clearly. Seeing him approaching, Su Qingsang pushed him away without thinking and moved away from his arms. Xiao Yanba. Su Qingsang was still concerned about the fact that he had saved her life last time. I'm already married. You can divorce even if you're married. Xiao Yanba didn't care about that. Su Qingsang looked at him, as if she was looking at a lunatic. My husband is Hu Jingyao. She didn't know Hu Jingyao's identity before, but now she did. The eldest son of the Hu family in Rong City, the president of Tianyu Group. Could she get a divorce with such an identity? Qingsang, do you really not think that Hu Jingyao married you for a purpose? Because of Hu Jingyao's identity, Xiao Yanba increasingly believed that Hu Jingyao couldn't be true to Su Qingsang. Hearing that, Su Qingsang frowned deeply. Xiao Yanba, I don't know what's wrong with you. Why do you have to say such strange things to me? But I want to tell you that it's impossible for me and you. It's impossible even without Hu Jingyao. Why? You're so smart, how could you not know? She liked a peaceful life. If she got together with Xiao Yanba, she would not be able to live in peace for the rest of her life. That was definitely not what she wanted. Xiao Yanba narrowed his eyes and was about to take a step forward when a voice rang out behind him. Yamba. Su Peijian narrowed her eyes and looked at the two people in front of her. She came late and only heard the last two sentences. Her eyes darted back and forth between the two of them. Her woman's intuition told her that these two people were not simple. Chief Cho, please do as you wish. I'll go in first. After saying that, Su Qingseng nodded slightly at the two of them and turned to leave. Qiu Yamba narrowed his eyes and turned to look at Su Peijian. His face was expressionless, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. Chapter 257. Qiu Yamba paused and looked at Su Peijian. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you feeling guilty? Do you think I can't tell? Su Peijian's low voice was filled with anger. Your eyes are almost glued to her. Is that so? Then you must be mistaken. Qiu Yamba was unmoved. Su Peijian was so angry that her face turned green. She glared at Qiu Yamba and stopped him from walking inside. Qiu Yamba, don't get one thing wrong. Su Qingseng is a married woman. So what? Qiu Yamba chuckled. I can still get a divorce after getting married. Do you think I care about that kind of thing? This was tantamount to a tacit agreement. Su Peijian felt her heart ache. She glared at the man in front of her, wishing she could stare two holes into his body. You want to break off the engagement with me because of her? Qiu Yamba, have you ever let me down? You're wrong about one thing. I didn't do it for her. I did it for myself. Qiu Yamba corrected her. Before I truly like someone, I don't think it matters who I marry. But now that he had someone he liked, he naturally wanted to marry the person he liked. Don't you agree? Ignoring Su Peijian's sour expression, Qiu Yamba entered the venue. Su Peijian bit her lips so hard that it almost broke. She stood there and clenched her fists tightly. His face turned from green to white, then from white to red. In the end, she stomped her feet angrily and followed him into the banquet hall. In the banquet hall, Su Qingseng had returned to Hu Jinyao's side. He was standing with Li Junsheng. The two men were equally tall and handsome. They were two different types of handsome men, and they looked very pleasing to the eye. People who didn't know the inside story would think that Tianyu Group and Hu Jinyao were powerful. The new mayor had only been here for a few months, but their relationship was already so good. However, Su Qingseng clearly knew that the two of them were childhood friends. Hello, little sister-in-law. Li Junsheng was used to being polite, so he took the initiative to greet Su Qingseng when he saw her. Hello. Hua Jinyao's friend was naturally her friend as well. She had to give him some face. Jinyao really went and married such a beautiful wife. Li Junsheng said half jokingly and half seriously. It's a pity that we're still alone at our age. How pitiful. Don't you dare. There were many people in Rong City who wanted to get close to the Li family. Now that such a young mayor had come to Lin City, the wealthy ladies in Lin City were even more tempted. If you really find it hard to sleep alone, I don't mind introducing a few people to you. No. Li Junsheng waved his hand. I'm not interested. Hu Jinyao smiled. Li Junsheng was ambitious. He was not the kind of person who would be trapped by love. Being a mayor was not his ultimate goal. After bypassing this layer, he didn't say anything more. Halfway through the banquet, almost all the guests had arrived. At this moment, the MC went up on stage to liven up the atmosphere. What he said was nothing more than to thank everyone for their support for Tianyu Group. Then, he invited Hu Jinyao onto the stage. Hu Jinyao went on stage and said a few welcoming words. He also thanked the companies for their trust and willingness to cooperate with him. It was a very ordinary speech, and the audience applauded. Before the applause stopped, Hu Jinyao suddenly reached out his hand to Su Qingseng with a faint smile on his face. At this moment, the light shone on Su Qingseng. She was a little surprised and didn't understand what Hu Jinyao wanted to do. Chapter 258. In fact, I invited everyone here today to thank you for your support during the time when Tianyu came to Lin City. I also want to introduce someone to everyone. As Hu Jinyao spoke, Su Qingseng had already walked up to him. He took her hand and let her face the crowd with him. He held Su Qingseng's hand tightly. I think everyone already knows this person, but I still want to introduce her again. This is my wife, Su Qingsang. Please take care of her in the future. He didn't say anything more, but the rest of the people knew what he meant. This person was Hua Jinyao's wife. Hua Jinyao had made it very clear what other people's attitudes would be in the future. There were whispers under the stage, but these whispers and looks wouldn't affect Hua Jinyao at all. As he spoke, he didn't forget to glance at the Su family indifferently. There was a smile in his eyes, but the meaning was quite obvious. Su Qingsang was under his protection. If the Su family wanted to do anything in the future, they would have to think twice. Su Qinghui didn't look good, and Su Peijian looked even worse. Even Li Qianxue, who was usually calm and composed, furrowed her brows. She didn't expect Hua Jinyao to care so much about Su Qingsang, an illegitimate daughter. This was beyond her expectations. Qiu Yanba also didn't look good. He didn't care about how others looked at him. However, Hua Jinyao's attitude and Su Qingsang's shocked and touched look suddenly made him unhappy. The music started, and then it was time for the ball. Su Qingsang was brought to the dance floor by Hua Jinyao. I don't dance very well. Although she had learned, she was really not good at it. It's okay. I'll lead you. Hua Jinyao didn't mind at all. He led her around the dance floor. Su Qingsang looked up at him. Did you think of that in advance? Of course. He had to let the ignorant people in Lin City know who he was protecting. Actually, you don't have to do this. What's wrong? Don't you like it? He knew that the Su family liked to make things difficult for her. She thought he didn't know about the last call, but he knew very well. He had to teach these people a lesson. I'm fine. Thank you. Su Qingsang smiled at him. She didn't care about other people's opinions. She didn't care about the attitude of the Su family for a long time. But Hua Jinyao's action still made her feel very touched. You're welcome. You're my wife. This is what I should do. Hua Jinyao leaned close to her ear as he spoke. Compared with verbal thanks, I hope you can give me some tangible thanks. The corners of Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. Looking at Hua Jinyao's face, she almost understood what he meant. Wife, I'm telling the truth, Hua Jinyao said in a very low voice with an expectant look on his face. I've always hoped that you could take the initiative for once. Do you want to try it tonight? Hua Jinyao. He was never serious, even on such an occasion. Su Qingsang didn't want to talk to him anymore. Just as the music ended, she took a step back and smoothly got out of his arms. Honey, don't be in such a hurry to leave. I still have a show to do. What program? Su Qingsang was confused, but Hua Jinyao took her hand and led her outside. Chapter 259. When Su Qingsang went out, a waiter brought her the coat that she had just taken off. Hua Jinyao put it on her. Naturally, it wouldn't be cold in the villa. However, it was windy outside, and it was a little chilly. Su Qingsang tightened her coat. Seeing this, Hua Jinyao reached out and put his arm around her waist. The heat from his body made her feel cold all of a sudden. He showed her around the villa. Su Qingsang didn't notice when she came in just now. Only now did she realize that the garden outside was terrifyingly big. The wide lawn was dotted with small white night lights, and it didn't look too dark. Against the faint starlight above her head, and the faint music coming from inside, everything looked quiet and beautiful. They walked around the main body of the villa to the back, and found that there was a super large swimming pool inside. Swimming pool? Su Qingsang's eyes widened. Wasn't this the same configuration as the Hua families? Although it was a little smaller than the Hua families, it was still very nice. There's a greenhouse and a small forest in the back. I asked someone to put a swing chair in it. In the future, when you have nothing to do, you can sit on it and read, or invite friends over for afternoon tea. Su Qingsang blinked her eyes, and it took her a few seconds to understand what Hua Jinyao meant. What do you mean by in the future? Don't tell me that this villa is yours. Su Qingsang's shocked and dazed look was really cute. Hua Jinyao was happy, and leaned over to kiss her on the lips. This villa isn't mine. It's yours. Su Qingsang's mouth opened into an O shape. What did you say? I said this villa is yours. Hua Jinyao squeezed her little hand, glanced around and then looked away. I bought this place not long after I married you. It was just renovated last month. I was planning to give it to you as a wedding gift. Su Qingseng was obviously shocked by his words. Wedding gift? There's no need for that, right? We've been married for a long time. Yes, we've been married for a long time. A few months wasn't a long time. Hua Jinyao held her hand and looked at her frightened face. He found it more and more amusing. I know we've been married for a long time, but I always felt that the previous wedding was too simple. I'm afraid you won't be willing to hold another wedding. So after thinking about it, I think it's better to give you a wedding present. You don't have to give me this, do you? This is too exaggerated. Su Qingseng was really frightened. There are only two of us. We live in such a big house. Who's going to clean it? And don't you think it's space? And before she could finish, Hua Jinyao had already kissed her lips. It was not a quick kiss, but a long lingering kiss. Until she couldn't speak at all, and couldn't breathe. Looking at her blushing face and snuggling into his arms, Hua Jinyao said softly, "If it's cleaning, just hire someone. If you have time, you can have a few more children in the future." If he still felt lonely, he could hold a banquet at home and invite people over to play. These are all trivial matters. Su Qingseng blushed. She seemed to have asked a stupid question. I still think it's too exaggerated. A mansion as a wedding present? Although she knew that he was rich, she was not used to this kind of spending. Chapter 260. Stop. Su Qingseng couldn't take it anymore. She needed some time to digest everything that had happened today. She looked up at Hua Jinyao and asked, "Hua Jinyao, why are you so nice to me?" "Silly, that's it?" Hua Jinyao pulled her into his arms and lowered his head to kiss her lips. "You're my wife. If I don't treat you well, who should I treat well? Don't worry. I will treat you better in the future." Su Qingseng leaned against his heart, unable to say a word. What happened? Hua Jinyao looked down at her and found that she didn't look happy. He was confused. "Don't you like it? We'll go and see the others tomorrow." "No. It's not that I don't like it." Su Qingseng shook her head. She reached out and put her arms around Hua Jinyao's waist. "I just feel a little touched." "Fool." Hua Jinyao rubbed the top of her head. "Then I'll definitely give you more things in the future to make you more touched." "Hua Jinyao." Su Qingseng looked up at him with a serious and focused gaze. "Actually, you don't have to do this. That's not what I want. Wife. It's fine as long as the house is big enough, but not too big. Don't ask for too much money, just enough to spend. I'm very happy that you gave me a gift and took the trouble to let everyone in Lin City know me. But I still hope that the two of us can live a simple life. Okay? All right. I'll listen to you." Hua Jinyao smiled gently. Su Qingseng felt her heart beating fast. It was warm and made her feel very comfortable. Hua Jinyao didn't force her to accept it. He also gave her time to adapt to her new identity. She raised her head and leaned in to kiss his lips again. This time, Hua Jinyao took the initiative and held her waist tightly. The lights in the back garden were not very bright, but the two figures looked quite beautiful in the night. Qiu Yanba, who was standing in the corner, narrowed his eyes as he watched the two of them kissing. "You don't like it, do you?" A very soft voice rang in his ear. Qiu Yanba turned around and found that Su Peijian had also come out. She had also seen that scene. Qiu Yanba frowned slightly and was about to leave. Before he could take more than 2 steps, Su Peijian blocked his way. "Do you feel bad? Are you feeling unwell?" Unfortunately, it was too late. "She's married." Her voice was one of schadenfreude that had never been heard before. That jealous look had completely lost her usual calmness, and she did not have the bearing of the eldest daughter of the Su family. "You don't look good like this." Qiu Yanba looked at Su Peijian's face. Naturally, she was also very beautiful. It would not be an exaggeration to describe her as bright and moving. But now that he saw this face, he was a little unhappy. "If I don't look good, you won't look any better." Qiu Yanba. She didn't want to disturb the other people in the room, so she lowered her voice. "What do you want?" Hua Jinyao is not someone you can afford to offend, and Tianyu Group is not something you can easily deal with now. You don't have to worry about what I want to do for now. I also want to say this to you. Hua Jinyao's attitude today had explained everything. You should know better. Su Peijian's face darkened. What Hua Jinyao did today was a slap in the face to the Su family. Chapter 261. She didn't hate Su Qingsang for hooking up with Hua Jinyao. She also didn't hate Hua Jinyao for publicly spoiling Su Qingsang. But Su Qingsang shouldn't have hooked up with Qiu Yanba. Su Peijian's eyes flashed with anger as her nails dug into her flesh. Qiu Yanba didn't want to pay attention to her. He turned around and left. Before he left, he glanced at the two of them kissing. Different from the anger in Su Qingsang's eyes, he was thinking about something else. There was still time. He wasn't in a hurry. Some people couldn't sleep that night. In addition to Su Peijian and Qiu Yanba, He Xiankai and He Xianyao also couldn't sleep. The He family had also come to Lin City to open a company and had cooperated with Tianyu Group before. But this time, Tianyu Group's banquet didn't invite He Xiankai and He Xianyao. Not only did they not invite them, but the cooperation project was already in the bag. But Hua Jinyao came to the bidding and ended up cooperating with the Su family. Hua Jinyao married Su Qingsang, so it was normal for him to cooperate with the Su family. But for the He family, it was a sign of their attitude. Not to mention He Xianyao, even He Xiankai didn't feel comfortable. One had to know that they also had a relationship with Li Junsheng. Hua Jinyao was so close to Li Junsheng, but he didn't give the He family any face. It was beyond the He siblings' expectations. Brother. He Xianyao saw some photos posted on WeChat Moments, and her face turned green with anger. Why was Su Qingsang in the limelight? Why was Hua Jinyao so nice to her? Don't you understand? He Xiankai frowned. He regretted helping his sister set Hua Jinyao up last time. You offended Hua Jinyao last time. What did I do? Didn't I also? He Xianyao didn't finish her sentence. Brother, what should we do? Are we really going to let Brother Jinyao and that woman stay together like this? What else? He Xiankai knew what his sister was thinking inside. Don't mess around. Father is already very unhappy that the cooperation project didn't go through. If we really offend Hua Jinyao, I can't guarantee what will happen next. He Xianyao didn't speak, but her face showed some reluctance. No matter what, she had to try, whether it was Hua Jinyao or the position of the young mistress of the Hua family. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao stayed in the villa today. The largest bedroom on the second floor was Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang's room. Su Qingsang went upstairs and found that she liked both the decoration and the furnishings inside, especially the semicircular balcony. It was super big, with a rattan coffee table and 2 sofas outside. On the side, there was a flower stand with a few pots of small green plants. Sitting on the sofa, he could see the swimming pool in the backyard. All the guests had left. When Hua Jinyao went upstairs, he saw Su Qingsang sitting on the sofa. He walked up and put his arm around her waist. What are you looking at? Aren't you cold? It's okay. Su Qingsang turned to look at him. The guests are all gone. Let's go. Hua Jinyao pinched her cheek. He couldn't bear to let go of her delicate and smooth skin. Are you tired? I'm not tired. Compared to continuous surgeries, tonight was really not tiring. Aren't you tired? Hua Jinyao nodded. It's getting late. Do you want me to prepare the water for you to bathe? Chapter 262. Hua Jinyao quickly filled the tub and came out. Su Qingsang was about to get up, but he suddenly reached out and picked her up. Su Qingsang was startled and quickly put her arms around his neck. What are you doing? I'm bathing with you. I can also try the jacuzzi that I asked people to install. No. Su Qingsang shook her head. This guy had never taken a bath with her before. Be good. We have to save water. Hua Jinyao didn't allow her to refuse and carried her into the bathroom. Hua Jinyao, I'm tired. How could he have the cheek to talk about saving water? God knew that they couldn't save water if they took a bath together. They would only use more, okay? You just said you weren't tired. It's okay. I'll only do it once. I said it wrong. I'm tired. Be good. Just once. Hua Jinyao's voice disappeared behind the bathroom. Soon, only the sound of water could be heard. As for Su Qingsang's protest, it disappeared in the sound of water. At the same time, a plane from Rong City to Lin City slowly landed. When Su Qingsang got up in the morning, Hua Jinyao was no longer in the room. She got up and walked to the cloakroom attached to the room. It was similar to Hua Jinyao's room in Rong City, but a size smaller. Compared to her small apartment, it was still very big. There were clothes in the cloakroom that Hua Jinyao had asked people to prepare for her in the morning, all year round. Su Qingseng looked at it for a while, then picked out a relatively casual outfit and put it on. After washing up, she went downstairs. In the past, every time Hua Jinyao swam in the Hua family, she would practice boxing with old Master Hua. This time, she could finally stand by the pool and watch Hua Jinyao swim. She had to say that Hua Jinyao's swimming posture was very handsome and standard. The morning sun shone on his body, dyeing his wheat-colored skin with a layer of gold. She knew that the Hua family had a gym. No wonder Hua Jinyao had such a good figure. He was indeed a very self-disciplined person. No matter how late he slept last night, he would definitely get up early the next day. Not only did he get up early, but he also insisted on exercising every day. The weather was getting colder, and the morning sun was not very strong. She sat down by the pool and watched Hua Jinyao swim. Suddenly, she felt that the years were peaceful and good. Thinking about how well Hua Jinyao had treated her during this period of time, she thought that it would be okay to spend the rest of her life with this man. Right? At least when she thought of that kind of life, she actually had some faint expectations in her heart. Hua Jinyao's figure suddenly appeared by the pool. He reached out and pulled her body into the pool with ease. Ah, Su Qingseng cried out. She didn't know how to swim. How could Hua Jinyao let her sink into the water? He held her body tightly, not letting her sink into the water. At the same time, he lifted her up. Peeking at your man for so long. Who peeped? Su Qingseng blushed. I didn't. Yes, indeed. There's no need to peek. You are my wife. You can watch it openly. Then tell me, is it nice? What's there to see? Su Qingseng was very stubborn. If it's not nice, why did you look at it for so long? Hua Jinyao held her and slightly loosened his grip, as if he was going to throw her into the water. It's nice, it's nice. Su Qingseng was afraid of him. Don't let go. I don't know how to swim. You don't know how to swim? That's good. I'll teach you. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he hugged her tightly. Su Qingseng had been in the water and felt a little cold, but after being hugged like this, she didn't feel cold anymore. Stop it. I'm not wearing a swimsuit. Let go of me first. Her hands clung tightly to his shoulders. Hua Jinyao looked at her like this. Her hair was wet, and her clothes were sticking to her body. Chapter 263. Su Qingseng looked at Su Peijian, who was sitting in front of her. She didn't understand why she was looking for her. Today was Monday, and there were many patients. She had been busy the whole morning. She wanted to go to dinner soon, but Su Peijian came to see her. Su Peijian had been sitting across from her for a while. She didn't say anything and just stared at her. Su Qingseng felt a little uncomfortable. She cleared her throat and said, Have you eaten? Let's eat together if you haven't. She remembered that this coffee shop had simple meals. She wanted to finish eating quickly before going back to work in the afternoon. Su Peijian still didn't say anything. Her eyes fell on Su Qingseng's neck. There were 2 big marks there. She wasn't an ignorant girl. She knew what they were. Su Qingseng felt more and more uncomfortable under her gaze. When she realized where she was looking, she felt embarrassed again. It was all Hua Jinyao's fault. He said that he wanted her to spend the holidays in the villa, but in fact, he just wanted to do whatever he wanted with her over the weekend. However, she was touched by him introducing her to everyone and giving her gifts. She couldn't bear to refuse. In the end, she was exhausted to death. Today, she saw the marks on her neck before going to work. In fact, she had already worn a scarf when she went out. However, after seeing patients and pregnant women all morning, she felt hot and took off the scarf. She was a little embarrassed to be stared at by Su Peijian like this. She said again, What's the matter? Su Qingseng, you've lived in the Su family for so many years, but I didn't know you were so powerful. Su Peijian's words were full of sarcasm. She looked at the marks, and then moved her eyes to Su Qingseng's face. Her face was an eyesore. You're already married, but you still hook up with Yamba. Su Qingsang, don't you think you're shameless? Su Qingsang's face darkened. She looked at Su Peijian with a faint anger on her face. If you came to me today to make unreasonable accusations, then I'm sorry. I have something to do. As she spoke, she stood up. Su Peijian stood up as well. Am I wrong? Yamba and I were fine. It was because of you that Yamba broke off the engagement with me. You're wrong. Su Qingsang interrupted her rudely. What happened between you and Qiu Yamba has nothing to do with me. If you insist on saying it's because of me, I've been in the Su family for so long, and nothing has happened between me and Qiu Yamba. To put it bluntly, it's just a problem among yourselves. Su Qingsang. Did I say something wrong? Su Qingsang's bright future wouldn't take the blame. You can eat more, but you can't talk nonsense. If there were no problems between you and Qiu Yamba, no one would be able to get involved. If there was a problem between the two of you, the result would be the same without the intervention of others. You're also a smart person. I don't need to tell you this, do I? Are you lecturing me? I wouldn't dare, Su Qingsang said calmly. I just want to reason with you. Su Qingsang, don't be too proud. Do you believe that I can make you lose everything? I believe you. Su Qingsang nodded. She believed that the Su family had that kind of ability, and she also believed that Su Peijian could do what she said. But so what? Even if you make me lose everything, the truth is the truth. Okay. Su Peijian nodded. Are you saying that you won't admit your mistake? Chapter 264. Su Qingsang, I didn't know you were so powerful. It seems that I underestimated you before. You were pretending in the Su family, weren't you? Su Peijian really hated herself for being blind. How could she believe that Su Qingsang was innocent? Pretending? What do you mean pretending? Su Qingsang raised her eyebrows. She didn't want to admit to the accusation. I just wanted to avoid trouble. I still say the same thing. If you have a problem with Qiu Yamba, go to him. Don't come to me. Su Peijian's face darkened. She didn't expect Su Qingsang to be so stubborn. Su Qingsang didn't want to pay attention to Su Peijian. She had a clear conscience. She walked away quickly, leaving Su Peijian sitting there with obvious hatred in her eyes. Su Qingsang didn't take it to heart. Su Peijian had been spoiled by Su Qinghui and his wife since she was a child. She just couldn't stand that Qiu Yamba didn't love her anymore. She believed that she would understand when she met a better man. On the way back to the hospital, Su Qingsang bought herself a snack. There was no lunch in the cafeteria because of the delay. When she was near the hospital, she walked a little fast and almost bumped into someone. She steadied herself and took a step back. Sorry. She apologized first. When she saw the person in front of her, she was stunned. Auntie, it's you? Xiang Saiping's eyes were a little misty. She looked at Su Qingsang with excitement. Su Qingsang felt a little uncomfortable. Auntie, are you okay? Didn't I bump into you? Xiang Kaiping was speechless. She had been in Lin City for a few days. It took her a lot of effort to find out Su Qingsang's whereabouts without alerting the Su family. She wanted to come and find her in the morning. However, she was old and in poor health. Her lower back still hurt from the fall last time. When she arrived, she found out that Su Qingsang had gone out for lunch. She was vexed and regretful. She should have come earlier. Maybe she could have had lunch with her daughter. Auntie. Su Qingsang was scared by her stare. She called out again. Auntie, why are you here? Aren't you in Rong City? Aye. Xiang Saiping's voice was a little agitated. I'm here for you. Looking for me? Su Qingsang frowned. She was there when Hu Jinyao bumped into Xiang Kaiping. She also saw that Xiang Kaiping didn't get hit at all. She fell on her own. After that, she continued to care about this matter. She asked Hu Jinyao about it, and he said that everything was settled. He even gave Xiang Kaiping 100,000 yuan. He didn't expect that she would come to Lin City. Su Qingsang's expression was a little strange. Auntie, what's the matter? Xiang Kaiping was still thinking about what to say when she saw the lunchbox in Su Qingsang's hand. You haven't had lunch yet? Then, why don't we have a meal together? Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment. The way the person in front of her didn't play by the rules made her even more wary. He only hesitated for a moment. Sure. Auntie, what do you want to eat? I'm fine with anything. I'm fine with anything. Xiang Saiping's voice was cautious. Su Qingsang was even more guarded. However, he still brought Xiang Kaiping to a restaurant next to the hospital. The price was not high. Because it was close to the hospital, the price was cheap. And the business was quite good. It was already past lunchtime, and there weren't many customers inside. Su Qingsang sat down with Xiang Kaiping and ordered for her. While waiting for the dishes to be served, she looked at Xiang Kaiping and asked again. Chapter 265. The weather in Lin City was getting colder. Of course, it was not as cold as Rong City. Xiang Kaiping was wearing a woolen coat. She seemed to be afraid of the cold. There were some fine lines at the corners of her eyes. When she saw the confusion in Su Qingsang's eyes, she rubbed her hands together. He seemed a little embarrassed to speak. Seeing her like this, Su Qingsang wasn't in a hurry to tell her. Auntie, if you don't want to tell me now, you can eat first. Let's talk after dinner. She wasn't in a hurry to ask what difficulties the other party might have. Xiang Kaiping did not expect Su Qingsang to be so considerate. Tears welled up in her eyes again. It was obvious that Su Qingsang had a good upbringing. She breathed a sigh of relief. That man seemed to take good care of Su Qingsang. The food was soon served. Su Qingsang found that Hu Jingyao barely ate meat, only vegetables. She didn't ask any more questions. The two of them ate quietly. During the meal, Su Qingsang thought of sending Hu Jingyao a message to let him know. But then she felt that she could handle this kind of thing. So it was unnecessary. After the meal, it was getting late. Su Qingsang glanced at the time. She still had about 20 minutes before she had to go to work. Auntie, can you say what you want to say first? I have to go to work later. Xiang Kaiping had just put down the bowl. Her hands trembled when she heard Su Qingsang's words. He seemed to have made up his mind. Xiang Kaiping stared at Su Qingsang's face and spoke very softly. I know your name is Su Qingsang, and you're 25 years old. Your birthday is on the 26th of December, the day after Christmas. Your father is Su Qinghuiyu. Su Qingsang's expression slowly changed. She stared at Xiang Kaiping defensively. What are you trying to say? Why do you know all this? These things were not secrets. A little investigation would reveal the truth. However, why did Xiang Kaiping want to investigate these things? Don't be afraid, I'm not a bad person. I'm really not a bad person. Xiang Kaiping waved her hand. There seemed to be a hint of urgency on her wrinkled face. Qingsang, I am your mother. Su Qingsang's hand, which was about to reach for her phone, paused, and her phone fell back into her bag. She glared at the woman in front of her, her eyes full of suspicion and wariness. What did you say? I'm really your mother. I also know that you were born at 9 in the morning. You weighed 6 catties and 8 tails when you were born. You, stop. Su Qingsang raised her hand, blinked, and tried to calm down. You said that I'm your daughter? Are you my mother? Yes. So you mean, you and my father Su Qinghuiyu. She didn't know what to say after that. But the situation in front of her was obviously something she hadn't expected. Yes. I was once Su Qinghui's lover. Xiang Kaiping gave Su Qingsang a definite answer, but Su Qingsang couldn't believe it. She couldn't help but look at Xiang Kaiping again. She looked to be in her 50s. There were fine lines at the corners of her eyes, and her face was a little yellow. His hair was also a little gray. Even so, it could still be seen from her facial features that she should have been pretty when she was young. However, Su Qingsang couldn't accept that she was her biological mother so easily. Firstly, she couldn't find anything similar to herself in Gu Shijiao. Secondly, she couldn't believe that the woman in front of her used to be Su Qinghui's mistress. Yes, Su Qinghui was married to Li Qianxue. Su Peijian was born before her. The woman in front of him could only be the mistress between Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue. Chapter 266. However, even if the woman in front of her was Su Qinghui's mistress, Su Qingsang couldn't believe it. Who was Su Qinghui? He was the general manager of the Li family. He had been in a high position for many years and lived like a prince. People would believe him. if he said he was only 40 years old. As for Li Qianxue, she was well-maintained, elegant, and had a natural air of nobility about her. She looked at most 30 years old. Even if Su Peixian didn't like Su Qinghui and his wife, she knew the difference between Li Qianxue and Xiang Kaiping. Under such circumstances, how could Su Qingsang believe that Su Qinghui would have anything to do with such a woman? It didn't make sense. Xiang Kaiping was a little anxious. You can ask your father. Your father knows. He knows. I told him at that time She paused, as if she was a little embarrassed to talk about her past. After thinking for a while, she took out a photo from her pocket and put it in front of Su Qingsang. I have a photo of you when you were a child. It's normal that you don't believe me, because you don't look like me. You look like your father. I didn't know about you until then. Su Qingsang looked at the photo. She could tell that it was from a long time ago. The baby in the photo looked very small, and his facial features did look like Su Qinghui. Xiang Kaiping also took out another photo of her and Su Qinghui together. In this photo, Su Qinghui was much younger and looked more like the baby in the swaddling clothes. Xiang Kaiping didn't look like this in the photo either. She looked very young, gentle and beautiful like a girl from Jiangnan. There was another photo of Su Qinghui alone, and this one looked more like him. She had to admit that Su Qinghui was really a handsome guy when he was young. You really looked like your father when you were a child. However, your facial features have grown up. They are similar, but not as similar as when you were a child. Xiang Kaiping's hand gently touched the two photos. I was too angry at that time, so I burned some of the photos, and now there are only these two left. As for your photo, there was only one. Su Qingsang noticed that there was a tear mark on the top of the photo. She must have planned to tear it up at that time. However, she didn't tear it up later and kept it. I was the one who gave you your name. At that time, your father said to call her Zijin. Indigo collar, my heart is free. I said that if this name was pronounced in Lin City's dialect, it wouldn't sound good. I said that it would be better to call it Qingqing, Su Qingqing. But your dad thinks it's too ordinary. Then he saw a mulberry tree at the entrance. I said, why don't you call her Qingsang? Because that mulberry tree is where your father and I pledged our love. It was the first time that Su Qingsang had heard about the origin of her name. Looking at the photo, Su Qingsang believed most of it. But she still had her doubts. If you're my mother, why didn't you acknowledge me earlier? Why don't you live with me? At this point, Xiang Kaiping's eyes reddened again, and tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. She looked completely different from Li Qianxue. Although she was old, when she cried, she really looked like a willow in the wind. Su Qingsang felt like she was bullying her when she heard Su Qingsang cry like that. In his heart, he trusted her a little more. Chapter 267. I'm sorry. Xiang Kaiping sniffled. She took out a tissue and wiped her tears. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't rush. Tell me slowly. It had been so many years, and the resentment and distress in Su Qingsang's heart had almost dissipated. Your father wanted to marry Li Qianxue. I couldn't help it. I was pregnant. I was going to have an abortion, but I didn't want to. Later, the doctor said that I was in poor health. If I had an abortion, I might not have another child. I didn't dare to have an abortion. When I gave birth to you, your father had already married Li Qianxue. I felt bitter in my heart. Because I was angry that he married someone else, I threw the child to him. I thought that he was better off than me at the time. Maybe he would take good care of you for the sake of our past friendship. Su Qingsang didn't speak. Xiang Kaiping was obviously emotional. She repeated the words, and the process was not smooth. Qingsang, I'm actually not a mistress. Your father and we met first. Really? But later why did he marry Li Qianxue? Although Su Qingsang wasn't often in the Su family, she had seen a lot of them growing up. Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue were a couple on the surface. They pretended to be respectful in front of outsiders, but they didn't have a good relationship in private. Why did she know? She had seen them once or twice when she was young. Li Qianxue was like a hedgehog in front of Su Qinghui. As for Su Qinghui, he didn't look like a gentleman at all. Instead, he was indifferent. Every time Su Qinghui had an argument with Li Qianxue would look at her colder than before. It's already like this. When I left, I also felt that I was too ashamed to see you. But I didn't expect to hear your name on TV. I hadn't thought about whether to look for you or not. But I met you on the road. Qingsang, I know it may be difficult for you to accept me for a while. Or you think I'm a liar. I'm not a good mother. But I'm really your mother. Xiang Kaiping said a lot. Su Qingsang couldn't bear to see her like that. He took out a tissue and handed it to her, signaling her to stop crying. Okay, I believe you are my mother. Then, Xiang Kaiping's gaze suddenly became hopeful. You believe me? You're willing to acknowledge me? Give me some time. Su Qingsang glanced at the watch on her wrist. I have to go to work. Are you staying in a hotel or? Hotel. I'm staying at a hotel nearby. Do you know the way? Why don't you return to the hotel first? Wait till I get off work. We'll talk about it later? Okay. Xiang Kaiping quickly wiped away her tears. She was crying and laughing at the same time. She looked very emotional. Su Qingsang couldn't bear it anymore. She did not want to criticize such a person too much. Su Qingsang didn't insist on driving Xiang Kaiping to the hotel. She went to work first. She has 2 operations in the afternoon. Although they were minor surgeries, they successfully diverted her attention and made her temporarily forget about this matter. It was only when she was about to leave work that she remembered Xiang Kaiping's existence. She was still hesitating about whether to go to the hotel to check on her when she saw Xiang Kaiping sitting on a bench at the entrance of the hospital, waiting for her. Qingsang, you're off work? Xiang Kaiping stood up. Her face was a little red. She didn't know how long she had waited. Chapter 268. Nope. I just got here too. Xiang Kaiping rubbed her hands together. I just wanted to see if you got off work. Su Qingsang sighed in her heart. Where is your hotel? Let me send you back. The hope in Xiang Kaiping's eyes dimmed. Su Qingsang added, I'll take you to get your luggage, and then you can come home with me. Xiang Kaiping's eyes lit up again. Qingsang, since you are my mother. But there's no reason for you to stay in a hotel. I have another room there, but it's not very big. I hope you won't mind. I don't mind. Xiang Kaiping waved her hand, the smile on her face growing brighter. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She followed Xiang Kaiping to the hotel and packed her luggage. He brought her home. It wasn't that she didn't have any doubts, but the more she suspected, the more she wanted to confirm it. Xiang Kaiping didn't say anything, but the ardent look in her eyes made Su Qingsang feel that she could accept her, which made her very happy. No amount of harsh words could be said at this time. She brought Xiang Kaiping home and settled her in the guest room. Although the guest room wasn't frequented, Shi Mengwan used to come here often. Therefore, there were matching blankets and sheets. Su Qingsang helped Xiang Kaiping with the quilt. Xiang Kaiping stood on the side and wanted to help. However, Su Qingsang asked her to sit down and didn't ask her to do anything. Qingsang, this house is yours. My father gave it to me. Su Qingsang explained calmly. He bought me this house after I got into college. Then I moved out. After the banquet the day before yesterday, Hua Jinyao wanted her to move to the villa, but she felt that it was too far away from work, so it wasn't convenient for her to refuse. Hua Jinyao didn't insist. After living here for a few months, he had gotten used to it. Moreover, this place was closer to his company. Xiang Kaiping looked at the house, and there was a hint of gratification in her eyes. Does he treat you well too? Okay. Is buying a house good enough? Su Qingsang didn't know how to define it, so she didn't continue the topic. Auntie is cooking. You haven't had dinner yet, have you? No. Xiang Kaiping waved her hand. Did you hire an auntie? Is it expensive to hire a nanny here? Hua Jinyao invited him. I wonder if it's expensive. Every day she comes over to clean up the room and make dinner. Xiang Kaiping nodded and thought of the young man from last time. Hua Jinyao, the young man from last time? You're my husband. Su Qingsang's answer was much more natural. Xiang Kaiping recalled the time when Hua Jinyao had sent someone to treat her waist injury, and the car he had driven. Is he rich? She asked. Su Qingsang was stunned. She didn't expect Xiang Kaiping to ask such a question. I'm okay. Don't think too much. I don't mean anything by it. I just care about you. Did your father introduce him to you? No. I found it myself. Xiang Kaiping nodded, and the two of them fell silent again. Xiang Kaiping wanted to say something but didn't dare to. Su Qingsang couldn't find anything to say. Su Qingsang had no experience in getting along with elders. Just then Hu Jingyao came home. As soon as he came back, he heard from the maid that Su Qingsang had brought someone home. When Su Qingsang and Xiang Kaiping went out, Hu Jingyao put down the key and saw Xiang Kaiping. Sweetheart, this is... Hu Jingyao had a good memory. He almost immediately remembered that he had bumped into this woman in Rong City. Su Qingsang was thinking about how to explain. The maid had just finished cooking. Let's eat first. We'll talk after dinner. Chapter 269. The maid left after cooking. Only the three of them were left. Xiang Kaiping stood there without moving. She was already uncomfortable. She felt even more uncomfortable when she saw Hu Jingyao, especially Hu Jingyao's gaze. But Xiang Kaiping really wanted to spend time with Su Qingsang. Let's eat, Hu Jingyao said first. He looked at Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang winked at him, indicating that they should eat first. The three of them sat down at the dining table. Su Qingsang picked up a bowl and filled it with soup. She thought about it and put it in front of Xiang Kaiping. Have some soup first. Thank you. Thank you. Su Qingsang looked at him and seemed a little helpless. You don't have to be so polite. Xiang Kaiping smiled a little awkwardly, but she couldn't help but glance at Hu Jingyao. Hu Jingyao ignored Xiang Kaiping. He put the soup in front of Su Qingsang and said, Honey, here you go. Su Qingsang took the bowl and smiled at him. The maid's cooking was good. She had 2 surgeries in the afternoon and was hungry. The meal was very quiet. Hu Jingyao, as usual, put food in Su Qingsang's bowl from time to time. Every time this happened, he could see that Xiang Kaiping's eyes were especially gratified, as if she was very happy that Su Qingsang was doing well. Hu Jingyao pretended not to see it and did what he was supposed to do. After dinner, Xiang Kaiping insisted on washing the dishes. Su Qingsang couldn't stop her in time. After Xiang Kaiping put the bowls in the kitchen, Hu Jingyao took Su Qingsang to the living room and sat down. Su Qingsang briefly told him what happened. Hu Jingyao narrowed his eyes. Contrary to Su Qingsang's attitude, he felt that there was something fishy about this matter. Why didn't she come to claim it before? Su Qingsang explained to him in a low voice. Of course, this reason was actually reasonable. She was betrayed by her lover and abandoned her child in a rage. Hu Jingyao could understand, but he was a little uncomfortable. Do you want to hear the truth from me? Go ahead. You didn't look for her for so many years, but you came looking for her after a trip to Rong City. What is your motive? Su Qingsang blinked and looked at Hu Jingyao blankly. She almost immediately understood what he meant. Honey. Hu Jingyao moved closer to Su Qingsang, whispered in her ear, and told her his speculation. In the end, he looked at her face with a hint of heartache. Will you be unhappy if I tell you this? Su Qingsang shook her head. No, I know what you mean. One mustn't have the intention to harm others, but one mustn't not have the heart to guard against others. She understood this logic. After saying the worst-case scenario, Hu Jingyao was in the mood to tease her again. Speaking of which, you really have to be glad that there was a mulberry tree at the door. What if it's a wudong tree? Are you going to be called Qingtong now? Screw you. Su Qingsang's worries dissipated after hearing what Hu Jingyao said. She raised her hand and punched Hu Jingyao's chest. He clutched his chest and fell on the sofa with a pained expression. It hurts, it hurts. I was hit by an arrow. Stop messing around. He really was hit by an arrow. If you don't kiss me, I won't be able to get up. Hu Jingyao's acting was so real. Su Qingsang was about to lose to him. She had no choice but to lean over and kiss him on the cheek. Before she could retreat, she saw Xiang Kaiping, who had been washing the dishes in the kitchen, come out. Su Qingsang blushed and quickly sat up straight. At the same time, she touched Hu Jingyao's arm. Hua Jinyao also sat up. Compared with Su Qingsang's embarrassment, he was much calmer when he was caught being intimate with Su Qingsang. Chapter 270. Seeing how Hua Jinyao took care of her daughter, Xiang Kaiping was actually very pleased. She sat down on the sofa opposite Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang. She sat upright with her hands on her knees. For a moment, Su Qingsang thought she was looking at an ancient person. "Auntie, you don't have to be so polite." She saw that Xiang Kaiping's face was a little pale because she called her auntie, but Su Qingsang couldn't bring herself to call her mother. Hua Jinyao reached out to hold Su Qingsang's hand. Su Qingsang glared at him. However, he stubbornly held Su Qingsang's hand and wouldn't let go. When Su Qingsang was about to pull her hand back, he suddenly looked at Xiang Kaiping and said, "Auntie, can I ask why it took you so long to recognize Qingsang?" Su Qingsang had asked this question just now, but Hua Jinyao's tone and expression were completely different. He was full of vigor, and his eyes were sharp. Although he didn't say it explicitly, it was clear that he wanted to protect Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang forgot to pull her hand back. Xiang Kaiping didn't expect Hua Jinyao to be so fierce, but she still tried her best to explain. I feel sorry for her, and I don't want to disturb her life." "Then why are you disturbing her now?" Hua Jinyao put his hand on Su Qingsang's shoulder and held Su Qingsang's hand tightly with the other. "I heard Qingsang's name on TV last time, so I wanted to see her." Xiang Kaiping looked at Su Qingsang with an eager expression. "I want to see her, to know if she's doing well." "I want to. You've seen her now. And then?" Hua Jinyao interrupted her bluntly. Su Qingsang was a little surprised by his sharp attitude, but she didn't say anything to stop him. Xiang Kaiping's lips trembled a little. She really wanted to see if her daughter was doing well before leaving. But after spending so much time with her, she began to feel that it wasn't enough. She wanted to make it up to her daughter, to spend more time with her daughter, and to give Su Qingsang the motherly love she had accumulated over the past 20 years. Maybe Su Qingsang didn't need it anymore, but she wanted to give it. She didn't speak, but Hua Jinyao could tell what Xiang Kaiping meant. His expression didn't change. "Auntie, please forgive me for saying something unpleasant. You may have a good life, but have you ever thought about Qingsang?" "Qingsang, you've been living well. We're happy that you didn't show up. But your sudden appearance is undoubtedly a reminder to Qingsang that she is an illegitimate daughter, the child of a mistress. Isn't it?" "No, I didn't." Xiang Kaiping panicked and looked at Su Qingsang anxiously. For a moment, she didn't think about what Hua Jinyao meant by illegitimate daughter. "I'm not a mistress. Qingsang, you have to believe me. She really wasn't a mistress. I met my father before the time. Li Qianxue came later." Xiang Kaiping was incoherent. She tried hard to explain herself, but he didn't know where to start. The story was too long, so long that she felt that she couldn't explain it clearly in 1 or 2 sentences. Su Qingsang was indeed very curious about what had happened back then. However, what Hua Jinyao said did make sense. "Auntie," Hua Jinyao interrupted her. "What happened in the past was not important at all. What was important was the grievance Su Qingsang had suffered all these years, and the pain she had suffered because of the word illegitimate daughter." Chapter 271. Hua Jinyao thought much more than Su Qingsang. "I don't care if you're a mistress or not, and I don't want to know what happened back then. On the one hand, I just think that you've caused Qingsang a lot of trouble by coming here so rashly. On the other hand, you're the one who said everything. You have no evidence to prove that you're Qingsang's mother. In fact, we can say that you're not." "I am. I really am." Xiang Kaiping was even more agitated than before. She stood up abruptly and looked at Su Qingsang without looking at Hua Jinyao. "Qingsang, I'm really your mother. Please believe me. Since that's the case, let's do a paternity test." Hua Jinyao looked at Xiang Kaiping calmly, but his eyes were sharper than before. "We believe the results of the DNA test. It couldn't be wrong. Don't you agree, Auntie?" Yes. Xiang Kaiping nodded. "Good. I know that one. Qingsang, when do you think we should do it?" Her reaction was beyond Hu Jinyao's expectations. He couldn't help but glance at Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang was also a little surprised. Meeting Hu Jinyao's gaze, she shook her head gently. She turned to Xiang Kaiping and said, "Auntie, don't worry. It was too late now. It was too late to do a paternity test. You should rest first. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it tomorrow after a good rest. Is that okay?" "All right. Sure." Xiang Kaiping still looked a little excited. "Qingsang, I hope you can trust me. I really am your mother. Whether you want to do a paternity test, a blood test, or confront Su Qinghui face to face, I'm not afraid. I really just simply want to acknowledge you." "Then what?" Hu Jinyao's words were still not polite. "Do you want Qingsang to support you?" No. Xiang Kaiping waved her hands. "I don't need her to take care of me, and I don't need you to. I'm rich." She had been living a simple life for the past few years. Other than hiring a housekeeper, she basically did not have many expenses. "I have saved money. Don't worry. I won't let you raise me. You may not be interested in my property, but all these will be yours in the future." After saying this, Xiang Kaiping even thought of going to her room to get her bank book and proof of her assets. "I really have money. I can show it to you." Auntie." Su Qingsang stopped her. "Don't be like this. That's not what I meant. If Xiang Kaiping was really her mother, her biological mother, she would definitely raise her. She's just..." Xiang Kaiping stood there, not knowing what to do. Su Qingsang couldn't bear to see that. It made her feel like she was bullying an old man. "Auntie, it's getting late. Go and rest. Let's talk about it tomorrow." Xiang Kaiping's lips moved. It was obvious that she had more to say, but in the end, she could only walk back to her room gloomily. The living room quieted down, and Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao returned to their room. The two of them didn't fool around like before. Su Qingsang sat on the edge of the bed and chuckled as she thought about what had happened that day. "What's wrong? Didn't you say you wanted to take a shower?" Hu Jinyao came out of the shower and happened to see her expression. He stepped forward and put his arm around her waist. As he spoke, he kissed her lips. Su Qingsang took a step back to avoid his kiss and put a hand on his chest. Chapter 272. She was referring to Xiang Kaiping's appearance. All of it. Hu Jinyao stopped kissing her. He just held her hand and held it in his palm. "I can't tell now. The paternity test couldn't be faked. If Xiang Kaiping wasn't afraid of that, that could only mean two things. First, she was really Su Qingsang's mother. Second, she was so powerful that she could influence the paternity test agencies. But the situation in front of him was obviously the first one. So she's really my mother? If she wasn't afraid of the paternity test, it couldn't be fake." Hu Jinyao turned his head to look at her face and found that she was expressionless. He seemed to understand her concerns. He gently lifted her body and put her in his arms. "So what? You can do whatever you want. If you want to acknowledge her, then acknowledge her. If not, then don't." Could he do that? Su Qingsang was a little hesitant. "That's right." Hu Jinyao's words were straightforward and simple. "All these years, she hasn't done anything for you. Now, she suddenly came out and said that she wants to acknowledge you. It's normal for you to not want to acknowledge her. To say the least, even if she's your biological mother, she might have ulterior motives. There are many people in this world who set their parents up, but there are many who want to set their children up. There are many, right? What's her motive?" Su Qingsang looked at him and thought of the same thing. But she didn't want to think of people so evil. "I don't seem to have anything for her to want." "Idiot." Hu Jinyao knocked her head. "You have me." Thinking about it, Xiang Kaiping's story was almost flawless. But her appearance was a flaw. She didn't acknowledge her earlier or later. But after Hu Jinyao revealed Su Qingsang's identity, Hu Jinyao didn't want to talk about conspiracy theories. But he had seen a lot of conspiracies over the years. Su Qingsang didn't speak. She was a smart person, so she naturally understood the key point. "But if the paternity test shows that she's really my mother, that's okay." Hu Jinyao knew that Su Qingsang had always been cold on the outside but warm on the inside. so he was very soft-hearted. If she's really your mother, then let her stay for now. Anyway, there's one more person to eat. It won't take much. As time passes, we'll naturally be able to see what she's planning. Su Qingseng nodded. That made sense. However, she said, what if she really doesn't want anything and just wants to acknowledge me? That's even simpler. Hua Jinyao rubbed the top of her head. Although I can't take care of her as my real mother right away, I can still take care of her. But we can get along with her first. As for the future, they could talk about it in the future. Su Qingseng figured it out and stopped thinking about it. Counter soldiers with arms and water with earth. Anyway, she was prepared for the worst. Her problem was solved. Hua Jinyao turned over and pressed her under his body. Su Qingseng quickly stepped aside and said, Stop it. I haven't showered yet. Wash it after you're done. No. As Su Qingseng spoke, she jumped up and quickly went to the bathroom. Hua Jinyao sighed silently. Everything about this wife was good, but she was too stubborn. When Su Qingseng entered the bathroom, the gentle smile on his face disappeared. He took out his phone and dialed a few numbers. Help me investigate a woman named Xiang Kaiping. She's from Lin City and later moved to Rong City. Yes, I want all the information. The sooner the better. After hanging up the phone, Hua Jinyao's face was a little serious. Su Qingseng was soft-hearted, but he wasn't. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.